All right. So, Tess, I'm gonna drop you this link so you can see it.
Okay, it's not your, I see live now.
Yeah.
I guess that's what you mean.
Solar
Yeah.
Fire. There we go.
Yes, I got it.
Cool. All right, welcome everybody just joining. Let's give it a couple of minutes so people can join. And let us know if the audio levels are good and you can see the sun. What's up there, Kimmy? Typically I use a microphone and I'm using the headset now, what we do with Skype, so we'll see if the levels are all right. Tess, thank you so much for joining and doing this chat.
It's a pleasure to be here, Chris. Thanks for inviting me to your
Awesome.
cool live streams.
It's been pretty nuts. We got no solar sunspots. It's been a solar minimum, I guess, so very little activity before we move into lots of sunspots in the next few years, I assume is what's going to happen.
Okay.
Cool. What's going on, Meredith? And I guess if you have any opening thoughts, go ahead.
Well, I have a few theories about the sunspots and all that, but maybe later.
Let's get it kicked off.
Now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. All right. Well, what I know, do you remember Hale-Bopp? The infamous Hale-Bopp that it was seen about 6 years? Hale-Bopp, okay. Yes. A lot of drama around it. It was from 1995, I believe, until 2001 or 1996.
Yep.
Yes. Well, the Hale-Bopp discharged the solar capacitor. There was wasn't the Quebec power outage, a very high CME. Mm-hmm. Then, so what I'm trying to get to is that what I know is that when comets come into the solar system, they discharge the solar capacitor and they kind of drain out the sun. Of course, there is the sunspot cycle, which has to do with Jupiter as well. And then I found this really interesting cycle, which is a 575-year cycle between Jupiter, Venus, the Earth, and the Sun.
Yep, I'm listening.
Yeah, that allegedly it might bring, well, that's every 575 years, so that's like not even happening right now. But allegedly might have been happening, I think the last time should be about the 1680s.
Okay.
And that the next one would be, I guess, almost 600 years from 1600, so that'll be in about 200 years like from now.
22-ish.
Yeah, but I think, what I think the article says that it moves Venus. It's sort of like an electromagnetic connection between Jupiter, Venus, okay. and it wants to move it towards it, or there's something there between Venus and Jupiter, and we are in between, and Mars, of course, is also in between. Right. And so Venus gets close to us, to our orbit, and then Earth, everything is trying to get balance out with the Birkeland currents. I think it's a Birkeland current, sort of like the Donald Scott model. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what I'm thinking it is. I know there's different theories, but and then our orbit would be going towards Mars a little bit, trying to go that way, to get away from Venus, because they're repelling and of the electromagnetic repel and attract and repel thing going on. So anyways, that's a few things that I think are interesting, but you can tell us.
Yeah, let's talk about the reconnection. Hazmat.
And then we can move to the New Age thing later.
Yeah, sure. I'm getting my brain in order. Sorry, it's first thing for me, so I'm just getting all my thoughts together. But in terms of magnetic reconnection, that's something I've spent a lot of time looking into. And this guy named Ken Wheeler talks about this thing called mutual mass acceleration. So he talks about how like two bodies that have magnetic fields will create a third point in between them. Not necessarily an even like 50% point halfway mark, but basically a ratio of like a tug of war. And they'll create this null zone, and they both move towards this null zone. And this is what we have kind of misinterpreted, I guess popular science has misinterpreted as, I guess, gravity's attraction versus acceleration towards a point. What do you think about that?
Wow. Yes, I agree. There's no gravity. Or if it's gravity, it's a very low attraction, like you said, electromagnetic, having to do with electromagnetism. Nothing with like what we were told with gravity. But yes, I have to think about that. It's a little, it's a little complicated. So, but yes,
yeah,
I guess
essentially
makes sense.
Let's see if I can explain it
in layman terms.
Yeah, let's see if I can explain it in layman terms. So let's say we're looking at the sun, right? The sun is emitting all these different shells of plasma and energy and consciousness, whatever, solar wind, right? But it's emanating in shells. Let's say you take another
that's
sun.
what you call it, a shell. Okay, are you talking about electric sheets?
Yeah, plasma sheets.
Okay. Oh, okay, got it. So it's like a Birkeland current, because
basically
then I can
like
understand
a Birkeland
that.
Current, yes.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the sun is emitting these fields or these sheaths or shells,
right.
And then let's say another sun comes within.
Oh, you're gone. Where did you go? I can't hear you.
Really?
Now I hear you.
Okay. I don't know.
And someone said that your voice was a little low. I don't know if you already saw that.
Yeah, I just moved. I moved the mic closer. Thanks, Hazmat and Kimmy and anybody else joining us. So.
Oh, it's kind of going and coming. It's strange. Maybe it's just the connection or your microphone.
Let me see if I can just double down on this, because I usually test. All right. I don't know.
Yeah, it's not very steady.
That's
it's not
shame.
steady.
I don't know. All right, I'll talk for another minute, and if you can't hear me, we'll try and sort it out. So these magnetic shells are emanating from the center point of the sun, let's say, and then there's another sun within its vicinity, and when the shells kind of meet each other, the invisible shells that we're not seeing right here.
Wow, it's really bad. The sound is really bad.
Damn.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Do you have another headset, or do you want to just try? Well, you can't try the microphone because then I'll be echoing, right?
I know.
Or you'll be echoing.
Did it get worse?
That's not good.
See, yeah, Hazmat saying both perfect. Hi, Ellie Win. I wonder if it's just connections on Skype. Let's give it a second.
You could try. I could try calling you.
Yeah, let's hang up and call back. You want to call back? Okay.
I'll call you.
All right, y'all. Give us a second. If y'all can hear me, just gonna fix this mic setup. I'm using my headset, which I typically don't use to do this show. Test. You back? Hello?
Howdy.
Yeah? Still bad?
Yeah.
Dang.
You want to try your microphone to see if there's any change, so we know if it's that? You're going to have to start doing little doodles and like drawings on the sun, because it's very blank. It's not doing anything.
I'm chuckling. I'm laughing.
Yeah, I've seen your little doodles when you were doing on the moon. That was so funny.
I will definitely doodle on the sun.
That's let's funny. Make him interesting.
I shall. I'm trying to do so many things right here. I want to make sure our audio is good. Give me one moment. All right, I'm going to turn off this headset mic, and I'm going to try the regular mic and see if this is a little better. Test. All right, let's see. Is this a little bit better? Or no, it's the same thing.
Same to me. I don't know what they think. How is it sounding too? Strange? No, I don't know. We can ask them, but it's not very good for me. It's a little. It's just kind of goes and comes, the sound. Hello, everyone. Hello. They're saying hi.
Test. Okay.
Saying hello back to all the good people.
Tess, can you hear me now?
Are in the stream. And
Tess, can you hear me now?
No.
This is not better, is it? Is it?
Even worse. It went downhill.
Damn.
Is it a different headset?
Yeah, it's let's see, there's a headset microphone.
So the other one was better.
Yeah. I'm gonna turn this one off and set this one
That's
up.
good. Whatever
Okay.
you're doing. Yeah, that's
Okay.
good.
All right. Okay, so let's keep moving as long as it's okay. And sorry if it sucks, Tess. Next time we'll figure it out, or
Oh, no
just sort it out
worries.
a bit better. Cool, so I'm just going to quickly finish up the thought on the plasma shells. Plasma shells, I think when you have a set of plasma shells, like two people meet and their spheres of influence kind of merge in the ether, two stars potentially have a meeting point of their shells. And I feel like that is the point where they'll create this third point between the two along potentially what is a phi ratio along the Birkeland filament, where they start mutually mass accelerating towards this point, as opposed to actually like a star being attracted to the core of another star, right, and attracting each other. They actually create a point where they both get attracted to.
I can't hear you at all now.
Oh my goodness.
You went into space.
Middle of the sentence or right now in general?
It came for a second and then it kind of faded back. It's like fading.
I wonder if we should try Discord.
Discord. Oh, yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, let's try Discord. Maybe Skype is just
go there.
Annoying.
Okay, bye.
Hey, y'all, sorry about the tech stuff. What's up, Mr. Sexy Potato, Francis Palmer, Ellie Wynn? Just give us a second here. Test. All right, Tess, you there?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Hello.
Let's see if this is better.
Is this where I was supposed to be? Oh, I was, it sounds like they could hear us, but I couldn't hear us. I couldn't hear you,
Okay.
not us.
Yeah, it's no problem. I think this sounds a little better. Skype is just weird. I'm gonna shut down Skype.
All right.
So let's do this though, not in the general chat, just because.
Yeah, where do we go?
I don't know. Can you see Art and the EU or Member Lounge underneath general chat? Or can we do like a?
Hold on.
A
personal?
Chat? Yeah, can you do a personal one? Yeah, try sending me a personal.
Or do you want to try doing that? Okay, let's try that. Let's try to find me, okay?
Yeah, let's see. Profile. Wait. I literally was just hunting for your name, but I now lost it. Hey chat, we'll be right there. I think it's starting to work out. What's going on? Rockstar and Francis Palmer. Got Tess Clark here, just sorting out some audio stuff. We've never done this one before. So I'll keep the music going and we'll be on in a second. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Okay.
Okay.
I think we're good.
Yep.
Yay.
Yep.
Finally.
All right.
Yeah,
Now
I
I
know
hear
it's
you
super annoying when the
perfect.
connection is bad, so my apologies.
Yes. Oh, no problem.
All right, everybody in the chat, give us a thumbs up. Let us know. What's up, Cosmic Surfer? I'm not hot enough. Thank you. What's up, Kronos? Cool. So let's just repeat that quick part. We were talking about, essentially, you had some thoughts on the sun. We can just recapitulate that if that's cool. Tess, you can just tell us about
Yes.
Hale Bop and your
Well,
sun theory.
yes. Well, I see the sun blank, very, very, very just no action. So I'm thinking that comets have been, hope maybe, discharging it. Of course, there's the like I was saying, the solar cycle. But what I know is that comets can discharge the sun, the solar capacitor, which is what you're talking about, the energy that the sun is outputting, sort of like the comets come in and they connect with the sun with through their electric sheaths or layers, like you were saying, and then there's this interaction, and the sun discharges more energy than usual, and then it goes into a quiet mode. That's what I know. But anyways, I just wanted to say that little bit.
Oh, I hear
I'm
you.
not a
Okay, here's some scribbles.
specialist.
Here are some scribbles on the sun. So what I was saying is that we have like this. First of all, we have the conjugate geometry of nature, the torus and the hyperboloid, and we've got the energy flow, likely some sort of Birkeland filament, right, where the sun or stars are grown like lymph nodes along this filament, and are just in my opinion, of course. And then what I was talking about with the secondary star, let's say there's a star like really far away, but it's got its own shells or plasma layers. And when these plasma layers meet at these points, like when two people meet and they feel each other, yo, I feel you, or they have this kind of energy exchange, it creates these points, this third point between the two bodies, where both bodies are attracted to that point. And this is what has been interpreted as magnetism, as like humans being attracted to the center of Earth, or just magnetism in general, two objects attracting one another. But really, I think this guy Ken Wheeler, Theory-Apophysis, talks about how two bodies will create a third point and accelerate towards that mutual mass acceleration.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I really like that idea. That, you know, it gives us some more insight into black holes, potentially, into plasmoids.
Exactly.
Definitely solar minimum, Cosmic Surfer, and yeah, I can't really turn my sound up anymore, y'all. We're coming through the same channel, so I appreciate everybody dealing with the sound stuff. All right, let us talk about some other stuff. So for everybody joining now, I got Tess Clark on. This is Tess's website right here that I'm going to link to, Mythos Decoded.
I have a question. When I mute myself, do you hear like a click or not? I'm going to mute myself. Did you hear anything?
Nope.
Oh, okay, good. Yes, I could hear something, and I was wondering if you could hear that. All right, thank you. Yeah, Mythos Decoded is one.
So I dropped your link in the chat, Mythos Decoded. So Teth has written a bunch of books. Tess has written a bunch of books.
Too close.
Hey, it's pretty honorable, you know. Tethys, the moon of Saturn, is good.
Nice.
So we got. So why don't you tell us just a little bit, Tess? I know some people have heard you before, but others really you're totally fresh to them. So just give us like a couple of minutes of like what you used to study, two, what made you start studying the electric universe and revisiting historical events from plasma cosmology or just from your new interpretation of it, and yeah, just a little history.
Okay, well, I've always loved space, looking at the stars, and cosmology and learning anything I could about the universe. And but I studied art, and I also got into spiritual. Well, I studied art and design, and I love traveling. My family took me traveling around the world. I was very lucky since being young, so I was exposed, and they took me to all the museums and all the important, like typical places where you would go and see like big, beautiful cathedrals and like castles and ancient sites in Greece. And so I was just completely mesmerized with that. And when I studied art, I studied a lot of art history. So that was very interesting also. And I studied photography but I went into the art kind of path. But I always kept watching documentaries and trying to learn or reading, if I could, from magazines about space, and which, of course, it was all kind of like mainstream science, unfortunately. But still, I was interested, and then I also dove into the spiritual practices, and since I was in my teens, in my early teen, late teens, I went to India, and I was in ashrams, and I was practicing. That's why I thought maybe we could talk about the New Age kind of aspect of life. And
Sure.
And then I went into the rabbit hole of the Ascension of the 2012, and I got into learning about mythology from the Mayans. I lived in Mexico as well. So I got really deep into that. And my brother was also a lot into the Mayans, and we were always talking about it and the Mayan calendars. What did it mean? And living in Mexico at that time, it was very different than the theories that you started hearing in United States before 2012. It was like all twisted. It's like they twisted the whole mythology. And so I thought that was
Just
quite
like a
interesting.
Birkeland filament.
Yeah, very twisted. Exactly, it was twisting, going Berkling currently, and then after meditating for decades, I got into looking at mythology, and then I got into learning about Ascension and seeing mythology and the planets. And maybe you're going to think that's quite interesting. I don't know if you've heard of my books, probably not, but I could tell you the interesting things that I learned. And then I started looking at things differently and thinking, I wonder if all this stuff that I've been told and I've been listening, and I was listening from very crazy, like UFO, like the Galactic Federation and the channelers of the Pleiadians, Barbara Marcinia,
Yeah.
Collier, abductions. I mean, you name it. I just fell into the hole
I was
of
probably in that
crazy.
same hole with you.
Yeah, for years I just listened to all these crazy things, and I was open-minded. I didn't believe anything, but I was open-minded. And then the Electric Universe, thankfully, came along, and then I started reading all of the Lakovsky's books, and I did watch David Talbot's. Of course, most people watched his videos because they're very popular, and I watched them, and then I read all of the Lakovsky's archive, and then I went into the sources, and I started reading as much as I could because I thought it was so interesting to try to understand all mythology, because I always loved everything about mythology, all the stories, and watching the Clash of the Titans and the King Arthur, and the knights and the dragons and
So
the
let's.
witches and Merlin the magician, and
I have
I
so much to
loved all
talk
that
about.
stuff.
Yeah, let's. I have so much to
So
ask
there
you.
you
I
go.
don't mean to be rude to interrupt. I just want to go into.
No, no,
I like
thank
to
you.
go into detail. So
Yeah.
let's hold that thought and tell me a little bit about Mexico. Like, where did you live in Mexico? What did you eat?
Oh, jeez. Well, I grew up in Mexico City, which is horrendous. No, it's
Lots of
horrendous.
smog,
Oh my goodness,
but
yes. But
it's
the cool
wonderful the
thing,
memory that I have
yeah,
of
the
it.
cool thing is that I went so many times to the pyramids of Teotihuacan, and there's so many pyramids around the Valley of Mexico and all over Mexico. There's just pyramids everywhere. I mean, they're basically everywhere. And there's one, Cuicuilco, which was very close to where I grew up. that it's supposed to be the oldest in Mesoamerica, the oldest pyramid, but you can't really see it. It's just like the base. It's this gigantic base, like a big platform. And so that was funny because I was just walking around these places like thinking, oh, nothing, it didn't really click, of course. And yes, I love pyramids. And I lived also in Cancun, which was much nicer. I mean, it's very touristic, but it was gorgeous. And but I also lived in Canada and the United States, and I would go back and forth in the winters to spend the winter in Cancun. And so I did learn a lot of the local lore of the Mayans and the Olmecs, because there was so much of it. And I would talk to the local people, and I met not the main Mayan elders, but people that were involved with them. So I would hear their stories, and I just thought it was so fascinating. And of course, I ate all the local food, which is very delicious. And unfortunately, there's pesticides. They have the organic food, but there was just a lot of pesticides when they just grow their food, which is sad because it's delicious food. It's very cheap. All
and
the delicious
amazing
fruits.
Cooks too. They're just some of the best cooks.
Yeah. So that was good. That was good.
What about? Yeah. So I had a quick experience in Mexico. I went to Acapulco, and I went to
Yes.
Oaxaca, which I thought was the best for like a week.
Yeah.
And it was right before the teachers' strike.
Oh,
Do
yeah.
you remember that, like 10 years ago or so? Or
Yes,
more?
I haven't been there for a long, long time. Yeah, I left like in my 20s, and I just went to holiday kind of places, like the beach. But yes, it's been terrible. It's been so much violence. It's so sad.
Yeah, so
But anyway, so you were there, and
I thought it was
you went.
beautiful, and I went to some of the Olmec and Toltec sites.
Excellent.
I'm really trying to remember what the names were, but they were
Yeah.
on the outskirts of Oaxaca, and then on the
Okay.
way from Oaxaca to Mexico City, or DF at the time.
Tula. Did you want to Tula?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much. There's so many places. It's ridiculous. So I can't remember all. But
Yeah.
yes, Tula it's a big one. Yeah, that's supposed to be built by the Atlanteans, the survivors of Atlantis. That's what they call them, the giants of Tula. Those statues.
Exactly.
That's what they call them. Yeah, and they said they were built by the survivors of Atlantis. That's what they say, and they were giants.
So yeah, the giants kind of lean
cool.
on this idea of the progenitors, and the fact that there was gigantism on Earth at some point.
Oh yeah.
And so I find like those used to really be like, oh wow, that's so it's fantastical. Nobody could have been there. There couldn't have been giants. It was definitely referential, but maybe there were people that were 15.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes, of course they were. Everything was huge, and I don't know. Speaking of Oaxaca, well, actually Chiapas. My mom told me she went to this jungle where all the plants were gigantic. It was like an island separated from the rest, and she said all the plants that we usually have, like everywhere else that we see in Mexico, she says they were gigantic. It was like I felt like I was like Alice in Wonderland. It was so weird.
I gotta say, I went to
big craters too. I mean,
Hawaii feels like that as well. I went to the big island in Hawaii to this park.
Beautiful.
And this park had these trees that were really just like in a movie like Jurassic World or something like that. These super high trees with canopies at the very top, and you just feel so tiny. It was so amazing.
Right. That's cool. Yeah, I love Hawaii. Yeah, there's so many beautiful places on the planet. They're
awesome.
Pretty.
So Mexico, and then you were kind of in the UFO Ascension rabbit hole of some sort. I've been there. Nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it, but
we're open-minded, right? So we're just like, okay, what else is there?
I thought a lot of people were into it, so I was like, what's going on here? Yeah, tell me about your progression out of Ascension, or out of the belief that
well, I didn't ascend it. That was the thing.
Yeah, 2012 came and went.
It didn't happen. And I did everything that I was supposed to. I swear, Chris. I did everything. No, seriously. I meditated. I was vegan. I was clean, my spiritual, like I was like just doing everything that I was supposed to. And I've been always a good person. I guess I don't consider myself having to go change from being evil to, oh, now I'm going to be like, oh, a saint. No, I was always pretty good. I consider myself, well, that's what I think. But I was even like trying my best, and I thought, I want to ascend. I want to New Earth, or the 5D Earth, and that sounds wonderful. And I just can't wait for this wonderful new Earth. And nothing happened. Then after 2012, the 2013 came. I was like, okay, well, I'm still here, and everything's the same. What's going on? And then these people kept saying, oh, it's gonna happen. Wait, it's taking time. We have one foot here and one foot there, and it's just this Gaia is waiting for us to cleanse our whatever, like bad karma, and the world has too much bad karma. We have to wait for everyone. And I was like, oh, well, I guess it's never going to happen then. But then I learned about, Kundalini and all of that. Of course, that I do believe, definitely, from the Birkeland currents, and as above, as below. And we have the biosphere, which was very cool listening to Eileen McCusick talk about this, because this is, I've been studying that, and that was very cool to have her talk about it. And I do believe, of course, we all have that field. Everything has a field. Everything that exists, because everything is basically made out of electricity, or electrical, or plasma, or ether, whatever you want to call it. Or ether is the force that permeates everything and that connects everything, I guess. I believe in that, but I think what happened is that they twisted it so badly that they just came out with all this craziness, and just made a lot of people like myself disappointed, and just disillusioned with everything, and just say, well, I guess that's not going to happen.
Is it okay?
But then I learned more.
Let's talk about that just a little more and see if we can't. I find that anecdotes of revelation, belief, breaking down the walls of belief, and then revelation is a story that people really need to hear to resonate with, because not a lot of people are able to talk to their families or their friends about these moments of heightened awareness where they're like, damn, I guess aliens might not exist, or I might not ascend to a light body, right? Like, I got to that same place, but I want to see if we can tie it to, even at the time when I was meditating and we were listening to David Wilcock and all this stuff.
Oh, yeah.
There was an idea of chakras, right? There was an idea of fields. Like, it just wasn't holistic. It wasn't, there wasn't any physical rationale behind why it was happening. It was like, oh, we see this, and we see the torus, and we see the apple of life. I've seen a lot, like Thrive, and Gaia already talked about
Nassim Haramein.
Nassim Haramein,
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we already had that, but why didn't it click?
Taurus.
It didn't click, in my opinion, and tell me your opinion, is that we have 2 or 3 different sciences right now. We have quantum that basically understands this. We have the far out space people who are actually sending spacecraft, so they have to know about magnetic field currents and plasma. But then you have mainstream, which doesn't know how to put this together.
Right.
And so that's what most people pick up, or even I was picking up for a while, is like, mainstream is just trying to sell you the best product they can. There's like, here's David Wilcock, he's going to talk to you about this random thing and this other random thing. And without, if you don't sit down with a paintbrush and paints, you can sit down with a paintbrush and paints and muddy up the canvas. You could sit down with a teacher and do something magical. So you can have all the tools, but without any direction, pointless.
Right. Well, I have to say also that I feel from everything that I heard, basically there was never the electric universe as it exists, and the comets and the sun and the whole. Yeah, I think that was what was missing, and I'm wondering if it was just a big kind of like for people like ourselves that are very open and want to know and know that something is not right and there's something missing and there's got to be more than what we're being told by the mainstream science, then all these alternative people talking about alternative, well, let's see, yes, well, how things are, the way things are, and under a different lens, and but they are completely like off. It was like a really just not correct. It was incorrect. So I thought, well, maybe that's what happened, and so to get people really confused and just taking them away from the real science, and people would talk about anti-gravity, and they still talk about stuff like that, and never mention catastrophes or comets causing problems, but it was always some kind of war with the aliens or some kind of strange thing like that. So maybe that's why.
Pop science, pop scientism, as I call it, has had like catastrophe in terms of asteroid, right?
Well, yeah, exactly. It's an asteroid
It's
hitting.
an asteroid, and then the
Yes,
Ascension
meteors,
people was always like alien intervention. But
yes.
what Electric Universe has really done is it's merged biblical with UFO, ancient aliens, and given it physics, given it form.
Well, I think the aliens came and they stayed, and then they're hybrid lines, like it's written all over the sacred text. I mean, they're telling us they are genealogical books of genealogy to know who's the son of who. That's what happened, and it was not a big deal. I mean, we were also aliens because we lived somewhere else outside of this system, so we also came in like Nibiru. Earth was Nibiru. Nibiru means just a comet, a planet that comes in that wasn't where it ended up or came and went like a comet. That's what the real meaning of Nibiru is. It's not just one planet. So we were like also aliens in a way. We came in our spaceship Earth. So that's what I think. But you don't have to believe that. But that's my belief, and it's nothing.
Let's unpack some of that. No, because I feel like, and this is not a knock at you. This is like you bring a wealth of information with every statement that you make, right? And I'm not trying to slow you down or hinder you. I wanna make sure that because I prefer meaty conversations. I don't eat meat, but I like meaty conversations. I don't like,
but it's good.
Because people tend to want to get deeper onto topics. So let's talk about it. So I want to talk about giants because people in the chat are mentioning giants.
So many people are afraid of saying this, and just because they don't want to be politically incorrect and cause I don't know what.
I think it's weird though. It's interesting because politically correct is now just used in general to just like sweepingly stop people from talking about topics, versus really politically correct really should have been just ethics, politeness, working towards ethics and politeness. Anyway, giants, progenitors, gigantism, the size of Earth, how much electricity on Earth, how much nitrogen, how much oxygen in the atmosphere, the proximity to a sun, the within the sheath of a brown dwarf. Any number of these items start uncovering bigger myths like, who were the ancient aliens? Like you said, it could have been people on Earth. It likely was people on Earth.
Well, there was both. I think it was both. The people that allegedly came down, those were the people that they actually were pretty close by, and they were probably inhabiting Mars and other planets and moons now that are probably frozen, like Ganymede or Io, or the bigger moons, or even small moons, because life can thrive everywhere, especially around a brown or a red dwarf. Definitely, it doesn't have to be a big planet. And we can see that there's something going on in Mars. Everyone talks about it. It's kind of obvious. But I think that these people came, and there was humans on Earth. They were not monkeys. They were humans. They were just different. They might have been a little bit smaller, because they do talk about them being larger than them, but not very much larger. And I think that there's been very big skeletons found on Earth from people that existed here. I don't know if they were a combination of both or what, but there has been very big stones, also gigantic stones, like in Gornaya Shoria. and which are like outrageously big. Sometimes
Right.
I was thinking, I don't know if that's real, but they seem to be definitely caught by humans, and or by some machine. And so I think that they were a combination. That the ones that came, I mean, we can already go out into space. So why couldn't someone else go out into space? Why not? I mean, why not? And they came allegedly, according to the text and according to the DNA of what I've studied, and I have it in my book, in my Mythos and Cosmology. And the second part, I talk about everything that I found that made sense. And the blue eye gene appearing about the same time that these people were supposed to land, and the red-headed giants and the elongated skulls. Those happen a little bit later, and I think that was mutations. But they were bigger, the giants, going back to, let's say, when they arrived, which according to the text is about 8,000 years ago. So it's not very, very far back. Now, they might have been here before, definitely. But it seems like planets go through catastrophes, and then people move away or come back or leave, go to a better place. And so they came, at least for the text, according to the text, during the last 8,000 years or 9,000 years, approximately, because there was no steady sun that we orbited that we could see. If we were in the plasma sheath, we couldn't see anything. So we couldn't even see the star we were orbiting. Maybe we saw it as sacred fire, between the clouds, the reddish or copper or golden clouds that the ancients talk about. So right. They came and they mixed. They just mixed, like having sex. There was no like laboratories and doing the DNA, or we're gonna destroy the DNA strands and make them dumb them down. No, that happened because we came out from the beautiful plasma sheath, and everything just that's why they talk about the ages, the golden and the silver. Everything started going downhill compared to before, as for life, for the size of life, and less viruses and bacteria and parasites causing us trouble. There was always animals eating animals, and dinosaurs eating humans and each other. That was not different. But the diseases of viruses and bacteria definitely changed, and more pain and infection, and from getting caught, and viruses, that definitely changed. It started happening. And but that's what I believe, that they just came, they mixed, they had their hybrid lines, and they kept the knowledge of these people, and then they were the rulers and the kings and the high priests and the emperors throughout time. They even tell you, all these kings and emperors, they're telling you, we're the sons of the gods, we're the sons of the gods. Who are the gods, or the lords? The Greek called them gods, but before that they called them lords, the overlords. And they're telling you all along history. If you read history, it's just like, why can't we believe them? That's what they're saying. And if you listen to the history documentaries of the royal bloodlines of the last 100 years, I mean, you have to listen to them, because they say we are different. We're a different race than the rest of the people. They tell you like that in your face. So it's funny. People don't want to believe it. It's like, fine. But
so let's see, because this is a complicated topic that I don't disagree.
RH negative.
I don't disagree with you, but I do have a different interpretation of these events.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't say the RH negative. That's how you know, and that's the royal bloodlines and the elites.
Do you want to elaborate? Like we talk about this in the electric view, and the RH negative.
Yes, I can elaborate. Yes,
I've
done a lot of story. Yes, I've done a lot of study on it, because I am RH negative, and so I was interested in finding. That's how I found out about this. I didn't go looking for it. I just wanted to know about my blood type, because I was having health problems, and that's how it happened. And I started going in and researching, and then I came up with all these articles about the gods and the blood of the gods, and I read all kinds of crazy things, and the reptilians and the shapeshifters, which is, I have to say, that's disinformation, because I don't shapeshift myself. As far as I know, I don't shapeshift, and my eyes don't turn into little lizard eyes. And
It's not
and
effective at your magnitude.
darn it. Yes,
I
I don't
caught you.
have that. So, but they say, seriously, that when you look at history, well, speaking of I have to talk about the reptilian shapeshifter RH negative people, because they do talk about that, and it's very silly, and it kind of bothers me because people believe it, that people will believe anything. And they said this because they had stories of Melusine that would change into the body of a snake, her lower body, her from the waist down. It was a punishment, and she would turn, or a curse. I have the story in my book, because something happened with her husband. Oh, her husband came and saw her bathing. It was like a really silly story. But the point of the story was that when she died, she became the serpent that they saw in heaven, which was a comet. And that's how the story came about. So they made these paintings about her. And then people say, oh, you see, this is the shape-shifting people. Look at her. It's painted in the painting. Or they have the statues that have the face of a serpent and the body of a woman holding a baby from way back. And it's the same thing. It's the bloodlines. That's also what I wanted to talk about. The bloodlines. There's the serpents and there's the bulls, or the eagles. Sorry, the eagles, which before were the bulls. And if you see it throughout the history, all the countries are either depicted, their emblems or their flags are either serpents, dragons, or eagles, and or bulls and eagles. And that means the bloodlines, their enemy bloodlines. And sometimes I would try to become friends and marry their children, so they would be like more complicated bloodlines. But basically, those were the people fighting. And I go into all of that in the book, because I can't remember everything, but I can remember some things, like the Germans and the church. Those are like the eagle, because they're symbols, the eagle. And then the Tartars and the Scots and the Jewish people, they're the serpents. They're the serpents. And so don't tell me that the church and the Jewish people have been fighting for the history since the last 6,000 years. So that's very obvious. It's like so obvious right there. They're telling you where they come from, and or who they are with, and all the royal symbols like the unicorn and the white horse and the roses and the what else? Flowers, roses. Anyways, all these symbols in flags, in royal flags, denote also bloodlines. And so there's, what I was trying to say is that that's where the serpent symbols came from, depicting the serpents that they saw, plasma serpents, but they're also represented a bloodline, an actual bloodline on Earth of the people that were the rulers. And they were not monsters, they were not weird creatures, they were not shape-shifting. They allegedly shapeshifted in the stories of mythology or in history books or sacred books. Even in the Bible, you read the Bible in the Old Testament, and it's all over there that the angels shapeshifted, and they were the messengers of God. And it's because they were supposed to have the control or become the planet or the plasma event that they saw. And so that's what the people thought. It's like, oh, it's like, wow, he turned right now, he's having control over the planet. And yes, they're so powerful, oh my God. And because they would know what was coming and they would know about astronomy, then people believed everything. And they were so totally like, oh yes, they are powerful, they know, they are all knowing, and we are afraid. And that's how religion got a control over the populations and the kings. Kings and religion were one before, until recently. They were the same, the high priest and the government. It was one and the same. And so that's where that comes from. And you see my serpent logo in there. For example, the Nagas with the wings. The wings means that this Naga is a planet. It's a comet, or a planet behaving like a comet. And it's depicted like a serpent. And then they would transform into humans. It was actually humans, but they were humans that they didn't really transform. They were just saying that to people. So they were depicted like this. It's not that they existed like this. So is that clear? Did I? Yeah, I guess I am clear, right? About the reptilian.
I've been drawing your thoughts. I don't know if you've been
Excellent.
looking at the screen, but
That's very cool.
I'm listening
Yeah, I
to
see
you.
a lot of going on in there. I love it. Now that's an active sun.
Now it's an active sun.
Now you made him go active. No, but I think it's fascinating, and yes, I wanted to find out about what was going on with the O negative and why so few people, and why the bloodlines don't intermarry other people. And I have to say that it's also for health reasons, because it's like the Rh negative don't have any immunity that all the other blood types do. And it's dangerous because the people would lose their babies, and of course they would lose the purity of the more like the who they descended from, not that their blood is pure or impure. Don't get me wrong, but that's how they say it. That's how they say it, or they put it. They wanted to be. They wanted this line of patriarchs to go down, and some women too were important, so they wanted to keep them. Just because they were obsessed with that. They were really obsessed with blood, and that's how he was working with this with the royals, and that's why the Bible said, in the Bible or sacred text or anyone's sacred text of different religions, we're telling them, don't marry your enemies, don't intermarry the other people, just because of their ancestry and their bloodline and the blood type too, because they would die if there was no help from doctors. Well, I mean, there was, but the women would just die, and you could see that all these women having miscarriages. They were probably having babies with Rh positive men, and a woman that is Rh negative cannot have a baby from an Rh positive male unless he has one allele that is negative and it's passed to the baby, because she will see it as a complete alien, some kind of evil thing that it has to get rid of, and it starts attacking the baby because of the blood that it's allergic to. It's basically allergic, and it would kill the person.
Tess, let me ask you.
Yeah, it's very important. It's health.
Let me ask you, how can people use this information?
To understand. I think they will never understand really what is going on in the world.
Keep going. Did I lose you? Oh no.
Sorry, I muted myself by mistake.
Oh.
Yes, I think it's important because if people don't want to understand or don't understand the past, they cannot understand what is going on with the world, the current state of affairs, and the current state of people hating each other, constantly fighting each other, crazily, obsessively for religious, fanatic reasons. It's not even them that they're fighting for. It's for some other person on their behalf.
We sort of talked about this on the Electric View, and you gave me that answer, yes. But I want to go a bit further here. So when I say, what do you intend, how can people use this information? Like, what's actionable? Can people write books about this? Can people take your book and expound upon it?
They can do whatever they want, whatever they feel they have
but
to do.
Just for fun. I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but I'm just
let's say we
augment this.
Yeah, let's say they just go and check out my book and see if what I say makes any sense, and if they can find more information that actually supports this, and go and, like I said, go and read history. Go and watch the documentaries about royalty. Look at what they're saying, and maybe they can start understanding things.
Here, I'm gonna be nitpicky. Sorry. I'm gonna be directorial here. I just mean, let's say you're at a convention or you're getting funding for this project. Let's say you're getting funding.
I don't think I am.
Let's say you're getting funding for.
I don't think this information is supposed to come out.
Oh,
okay.
If you don't want to talk about it, that's fine. I'm doing a hypothetical.
Oh, no. Yes, go ahead.
Let's say you were selling your next book, and somebody said, give me an actionable takeaway from this. You know, like a restaurant.
Well,
They're like, how much are you going to make at the end of the year? Like an article. How many clicks are you going to get? Like just for fun, because I understand where you're coming from. Like that, people go research is not. I'm not going to say it's not very helpful. Of course, it's helpful, but I'm saying like I've
well,
noticed
there's a lot of information out
there's
there
a
too,
ton
so
of
people can
information.
get
Right.
they can get drowned in the information, the sea of
Did I
information.
lose
I
the
know
sun?
that.
I did. Hold on, let me get the sun back.
Yeah,
Sun,
there
come
it
back.
is.
No, what I was saying is that just for the sake of it, shall we just consider that, actionable items, right? Like a button at the end of a newspaper article is what makes people
Make
do
your life easy. Here, enlighten yourself.
Yeah, but
Yeah, I
enlightenment.
don't know.
Well, I'm just. It's not about reality tests though either. I'm just saying hypothetically, somebody came to you and said, "Give me a mission statement." I'm just
Well,
playing
actually, it
along
is.
because,
I think. Well,
yeah, go ahead.
I want to say something. Actually, yes, yes. I want to say something because I think that it goes very well with the whole ascension process and 2012 thing, and we're all one, and we're going to ascend, and everything's going to be wonderful, right? Well, what I was going
Okay.
to say too is that what I found when I was reading the mythology, and especially there's a lot of Hindu and Buddhist mythology that where all this information is really obvious and really in detail and amazing. What I found out is that ascension meant that a person who was considered a ruler or a god, like Buddha. Buddha just means the Lord. It doesn't even, it's not a personal name. But like Buddha, the Buddha that the first Buddha from maybe 4 or 5 thousand years ago, during the time of Mercury, when he died, he ascended and he transformed into the planet Mercury, which was covered at the time by seven giant plasma filaments that look like snake heads. So the story of the let me try to remember the name. The snake Mukalinda. Mukalinda came and protected Buddha when Buddha was meditating and when Buddha was in the forest. That's the story. While the catastrophes were happening or a big flood was happening. And so ascension meant to become a planet. So, and then the church, the Christian church, also used the same ascension for people that would die and would become planets. And I thought, wow, so I guess we're never going to ascend because that's silly. That's just silly.
Right.
Because they were going and talking about the past. And so people saw that, and then people were, oh, they're very powerful, and that's what happens. So I understood that. And so ascended masters and all of that has to do with a person becoming a planet upon their death, or a blazing star, or yes. So I that was a big discovery. And then the other thing is that all the spiritual practices of the Hindus that I thought was not religion are total religion. They're just like the other religions, but they don't tell you that. They tell you, oh, we're not religious, but of course they are religion. And all the mantras, which, I mean, they have beautiful music. I love their music. I still play it, and their mantras is stuck in my brain, unfortunately, that when I try to, calm down or relax, it comes automatically for me because I repeated it for so many years that it's stuck. And I wish I didn't have it, because it means I bow to Shiva, basically, or I worship Shiva. That's the real meaning of it, Om Namah Shivaya. And I don't like it. It makes me upset. So I think that's important,
Let's
because
explore
these
that.
people,
Is that
the people
okay?
that created these religions were the same people that consider themselves omnipotent, gods, that we should worship them, and above us and above the rest of the people.
Let's remove number 3 from the list of 4, what you just said. All right? Give me
Why?
1, 2, and 4. Omnipotent. What?
Oh, okay.
Can you repeat the?
Omnipotent?
Yes.
what these people were? Well, they were omnipresent, omnipotent. Do you mean the powerful,
I'm
the
just
ascended
saying it's a
masters?
very fine nuance, and this is not, again, like I feel like when I discuss these things about the love of destruction, death, the necessity of evil on Earth, I get, put in this box, but I'm just going to go for it because I think this is the unpopular opinion. So the unpopular opinion is what I'm saying. Everything you're saying seems to be, like really well researched, really thorough, coming from a great place of ethics and morality, right? And teaching people about history, reinterpreting history. My question to you is, what's wrong with feeling omnipotent? And what's wrong with feeling like the Godhead? And what's wrong with using those powers to achieve goals? While number
Well,
three,
no,
wait,
it's
let
they
me
were just
finish my
very.
thought. Let me just
Oh,
quickly
okay, okay,
finish my
okay. I
thought.
thought you were asking me. No,
No, no,
you're
I
gonna
am,
answer
but I
your
need to finish
question.
my thought in order to
Oh,
ask you.
okay.
So
Sorry, sorry. Go ahead.
number three
It was
was feeling better
omnipotent.
than everyone else, right? Or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Or no, that
Mm-hmm.
they should be obeyed. Okay, number four was
Yeah.
feeling better than everyone else. So ultimately, the ego, no matter what you do, eating, you're trying to eat the best food. You're trying to have the best love. You're trying to go to the nicest
Mm-hmm.
sunset, right? You're trying to pleasure yourself so that you have a better experience than things around you because sorry, I get immediately into non-breathing.
Okay, let's do some deep breaths, everyone.
It's way too early to get into this hype state. But you dropped me
I
so
think
many hooks
it's
to
the
to.
coffee, Chris.
Oh, it's the coffee. No, all
It's the
right, all
coffee.
right, it's the coffee. So it's also I'm keeping an eye on our
It's
sun over here.
intense.
So we
It's
got a
beautiful.
yeah crazy plasma ball sharing the stream.
Mm-hmm.
So
I
my
love
point
it.
is, from somebody who's an artist, just just as a musician, you spend 25 years working on something, and as arrogant as it sounds, you ultimately fall into three of those four categories. Now, I don't think I'm better than people, but do I feel like I'm a better musician than some people? Absolutely. Do I feel
Oh yeah,
omnipotent when I play on stage or do music for people even
yeah. You
online?
deserve it.
Yep.
You deserve
And
it.
two, do I feel like basically any number of these ego trips that people feel like, oh my god, I can't have an ego trip because people will judge me for having an ego trip, is really just a choice. Ultimately, it's not real. I mean, it's real, but it's not real because people do
Yes.
overcome it all the time. Right now, we're overcoming it. A billion other people on Earth are not doing this work. So you can easily go to the ego
Right.
place and start saying like we're better than them, but we don't. This is the nuance. The nuance is that yes, there are royal bloodlines, and yes,
Well,
there are all the.
well, they were very intelligent. They're very, very, very,
But don't we
very
want to also be
intelligent because
intelligent?
they no, no, I'm just saying they have been because everyone is asleep in their dozing, in their completely under
But you're
their
not.
spell.
I'm not. Rick's
That,
not.
but not the majority, not the
But
majority,
that
and they
okay.
have
So
nothing to.
my
By the
argument
way,
is
they
the
have
plasma.
nothing.
My argument
Yes,
is
yes,
the
they
plasma.
have
So
nothing to
90%
worry
have to be
about.
sheep for 10% to have this intellect and awareness.
Probably,
It's a shift in the Kali Yuga. We're at
it's
a dip in the
it's.
wave where
I guess.
99% of people are zombies and 1% of
Yeah,
people are thinking, and then
yeah.
maybe there's a golden age where 99% people are thinking and 1% are zombies. Like I'm just trying to think about this from a physical manifestation of like
Could be.
what's really going on. Can you eliminate the concept of royalty on Earth? I don't know,
Well, we're not going to. We're
uh,
not going to
but
because
to
they're too
accept it,
powerful and
yeah.
they're too clever and they're too intelligent and people are too dumb.
I,
Most
I
people are
don't
too
know if
dumb
they're too
and they don't
intelligent. I
care.
feel there is an
They don't
enforced.
care.
How about this? I was talking about this idea of like popularity and success being success being determined by money or popularity as opposed to quality. This is a huge deal. So YouTube Rewind just did a whole thing and they featured a whole bunch of channels that just have millions of views. They didn't
Hmm.
feature all the small channels of super cool people that
Of
real
course.
people connect with. like 1,000 people connect with. See, this is just an interpretation of our reality. So like my point is, I hear you about all the bloodlines and the fact that we have super rich and powerful people along the spectrum. A tiny group of them have all the consolidated power over 85% of us or 95% of us. However, there's a 5% of an intellectual group, which I believe we're sort of hanging out right here, that is able to look at the other 95% that's in zombie world and say, "Wow, let's make some art." I mean, that's what it,
Right.
like, how do we, you can't eliminate it. We're not going to go, like,
No,
it's like
no,
a soup.
that's not my intention, Chris.
No, 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 no,
I
no.
think at this
Please, let's
point,
not make this a thing. I'm not
and
saying that.
if the royal
Please,
bloodlines
it's
are
just it's a
listening,
dialogue. You can have your
if
full on opinion. This is just a
if the
dialogue, please.
yeah, and if the royal bloodlines are listening, like I'm not
Fine.
going to.
They have to
Yeah, no,
exist.
I think yes. I don't think that anyone is gonna come and change anything because it's not gonna happen. It hasn't happened in 8,000 years, and it's not gonna happen. So they're just really intelligent, and I just want to know what's going on, and I want to understand, and that's for me that makes me happy, and gives me like, oh, maybe that's why I came to this planet, to figure things out, to see through the veil of disinformation and delusion and misinformation. Maybe that's why, because I don't really see any other purpose
Well,
for
let's
me
take it
to having
let's
come
take it to
here.
electric, right? So let's talk about plasma, because for me, I love, looking at space, stars, the sun. Man, we're looking at a star right now, up close, right?
Yeah.
If I had a potassium filter, which would eliminate certain light bands, we would see chromatic curls on the edge. We'd see um, the filaments around the sun right now, but they're there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're there. Something is holding the sun in place, and it can't be superheated gas only because it has structure. The reason it has structure is because it is one of the most dense, it's a plasmoid essentially, and so it has taken over this region of space and created a sphere, roughly a sphere. We see it, I think, more so as a sphere because of diffraction, but ultimately it's spherical. And it's creating its space, uh, but everything around it are these bubbles that are holding it in place. This is what is perceived as the floating and drifting through space. Things are fully connected through the morphogenetic field, which is represented
Yes.
by plasma sheaths or bubbles or shells. And each plasmoid, every particle or cosmic object in the universe, basically has these plasma shells like an onion or an apple or a human. And they're grown along Jack and the Beanstalk, like the centipede or the spinal column, and you look at everything and it's recursively the branches, it's branches, deviation, branches, cellular diffusion, and resonance. So, on that topic, what if cultural events and these ideas of royal bloodlines and sheeple and intellectualism and art exist also along these filamentary axes? And the further you drift away from the center point, the sun or the plasmoid, this is how concepts and words and thoughts and emotions actually shift, as opposed to like it just exists in a vacuum, right? Like, why wouldn't thought and word and emotions and people and all these interactions we have also be recursively geometric along this shape, which is the donut and the hyperboloid with the magnetic field lines, which I'm going to draw right now and then talk.
Yeah, I want to say something. I didn't mean that humans are dumb. They have been dumbed down. They have been manipulated. They have been manipulated because these people are very, very good at what they do. They're so good, and most people fall for the drugs and the silly programs and the sex. And oh, I also wanted to talk about sex, magic, and all that thing. That if you're interested, if people want to know about
Always.
my point
Let me
of view on
ask,
that
do you want to
and the
hit up the
occult.
chat, Tess, at all? I
Yeah,
mean, I
yeah.
always
Do they?
engage with the chat
Yes. Do
room,
they?
so
Yeah. Is there any questions or anything? Any comments?
I mean, feel free
Do I
to
want to hear
talk
the comments?
directly to the chat, you know. I'm just reading it as
Okay.
I go through, but
Let's
I'm
see.
gonna
I'm
get
trying to
myself a drink
see.
actually, if you don't mind, and I'll be right back.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna scroll down and let's see. Yes, there's a lot of talk about the giants. The giants. I don't think there's any questions, but yeah, people have been dumbed down. I mean, I was dumbed down for a long time, and then I came out of it, and
Hey, so was I.
I was delusional. I was very delusional.
Up until
And
5 years ago, even up until three
yeah,
years ago, I felt delusional. But
embarrassed. Yes, I'm just embarrassed to think about the things I said to people. I'm just like, oh dear, I'm sorry.
all right, let's
Sorry,
let's hit
people.
the chat. Let's see. So Kimmy,
Yeah,
we got
I don't
Shockwave here. We
see.
got Kronos. We got Ellie Wynn.
Yeah, don't really
Um,
see anything.
Francis Palmer. It's good to find a
Mud
site that can.
Fossil University.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, we can talk about petrification or
Oh yes,
fossilization
yes.
from
I was just
Comet.
thinking.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I'm going to put out a little book sometime in this. I'm doing a series of ebooks now that I'm trying to focus on like 1 or 2 centuries of the last 1,000 years and talk about all the catastrophes linked to comets and comet sightings. And that's quite fascinating. And
Yeah.
there's the one from the 1200s and 1300s. There are people talking about how the people in the mountains, like 50 or 60 what is it, peasants, or not peasants, sorry, they were digging for salt, I believe, and then there were the cows with their milking buckets. They were all turned into stone, petrified, or they said pillars of salt, not pillars of salt, like stone, like stone pillars, salt pillars, or some, not pillars, like stone and salt together, stone, salt stone, or
Yep.
something like that. And I was like, what? Remember, I was telling you about that. I was like, we have to talk about this. This is crazy.
Yeah,
So,
let's do it.
yes.
Let me finish up in the chat, and then we can go on a
There,
rant. And let's see.
yeah, there could have definitely been some of those giants that were instantly
Well, yeah. Oh, I
petrified,
know. Thank you.
fossilized.
You reminded me. I wanted to say a point about gigantism. So people take like it's so interesting how there is conspiracy around giants, right? There's the woo-woo and
Mhm.
the music and the stuff because of TV. But if you consider that they take dinosaurs and gigantic flora and fauna at face value from scientists.
Right.
Why did they believe gigantism would only happen with plants and animals and not also human beings? Like it's the simplest one
Right.
to one. It's like these. You remember? I don't know if you remember this, but Mad Magazine in the '80s when I was a
Yes.
kid had snappy
Mhm.
answers to stupid questions, and I always remember that when I think about some of these conspiracies where they could be stopped instantly, but nobody comes up with these snappy answers. Um, but yeah. Anyway, there's
Yeah, well, also about giants, there
yeah.
was giants all the way until the 1500s when the Spaniards were going around South America. They found them in Chile. They were all what was it? Well, yes, they could see them in the mountains. There's tales of the giants. They even brought some of them with them, and that was only 500 years ago. There
Well,
were
that's
still
the other thing.
giants,
People think
and
it's
there's
so conspiratorial, but it
six
not only could
fingers.
it been recent, but
Double,
definitely true.
yeah. And there's still people with 6 fingers and a double set of teeth, 6 fingers on 6 toes on their feet. And that might have been a mutation because, there was so much electricity with the thunderbolts coming in with electrical interactions with the planets
Hmm.
that there were so many mutations. So I don't know if that's what the way the original people looked like, or some of these people just turn into I don't know,
Well,
this happened, I don't know, but there's people still with that genetic trademark or still showing up in South America.
look. I mean, look at the Olmecs and the Toltec statues. These and now look at the Okinawans. They have basically square faces. I mean, rounded rectangle faces. There's this very interesting geometry when especially let's segue back a couple to the first part of the show where we were talking about the Ascension and Gaia TV. And I know a lot of people in the chat, like, I feel like I battle my chat room, even though I like them very much and they challenge me. But I feel like certain things like popular science right now is just so full of misinterpretations that it's almost toxic. And I feel like they mentioned, I think Kimmy, who I like very much, mentioned David Wilcock and Corey Good, right? And that was pretty much the one of the last things that I saw before I canceled my Gaia account. And because think about it, David Wilcock is this really smart dude. I don't know why I'm going down this tangent, but I feel like, you know, this is where the thread is taking me because it's important to understand why these people are not telling us exactly how it all connects. And this
Yeah.
is where the money's at. The money basically says that if we tell people how it all works, which I'm sure has already been figured out, then people can go and build their own anti-gravity machines, they can build energy devices, they can leave Earth.
Yeah.
It really separates that tiny group of people
uh,
from the rest of us. Now,
mhm,
even though some of us have a simple, like Neanderthalian understanding of the science, we understand that
mhm.
it's physically possible, and we're not waiting for a savior. We're, helping ourselves.
Right.
So I
Right.
think I constantly talk about salvationism and why people feel like they need Superman, Batman, Marvel heroes,
Oh
Thanos,
yeah, good
why they
point.
need these archetypes to be actual people as opposed to like, let me get a telescope and start looking at Jupiter and understanding my past. Like it's an instant jump from
Mhm.
total fantasy to
Mhm.
immediate science and empowerment. And think about how few people are here, even today. Well, we have a lot more people, but think about it. Like these channels that get millions of views are not talking about reality at all. It's pure fantasy at this point, even though it's using a ton of real data because you can't completely bullshit people. People have a
Right.
good bullshit meter. So it's a ton of
Right.
real science shrouded in
Exactly.
pure BS.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think critical thinking is the biggest value today. Beyond any,
Mm.
which is why I don't disagree with you on all the things you're saying, but I really feel like when I saw the geometry of life, and that allowed me to understand death. And once you understand death and you feel empowered, and it's close to you, then you realize like you can say and do things you didn't think you could do before, like learn an instrument or make a video or write a book. You, Tess, have had a very rich life, right? So you've been able to kind of do a lot of these things. You're a polymath, you're a linguist, right? You've written a ton of
Mhm.
stuff. Once you've written one thing or two things and you had a good reaction, you start leveling up, right? Like
Yes.
you have the attributes, essentially three of the four attributes that I mentioned earlier. I don't think you're better than everyone else, but I certainly think you feel like you're knowledgeable more than other people. I think you think that you're
Mm.
pretty powerful, so omnipotent. It just means you're powerful in many ways, not all I mean, and it kind of implies all powerful, but within your life, you're all powerful. You travel, you go, you do exactly what you want to do, pretty much omnipotent. So I think it's important to have the nuance of like you can use superpowers for good, and you can also use them for bad. Is really the nuance there. It's important to say that for me to say that superpowers are not. You can't say they're all bad because I'm using them for good today. My knowledge of tech and astronomy and reaching out to you and being super
Mhm.
introverted and talking to people like I can barely breathe sometimes, you know what I mean? Like I get very
Breathe.
nervous.
Okay, breathe.
So, no, so
Really? You maybe get excited. No, but yeah, breathing is very important. That's how you get life, life in your body. And
Nirvana.
yes, that's yeah. Breathing, breath is now that is one of the. I have to say, I'm very grateful for all the practices I did, the spiritual practices, because breathing they teach you that that's like the key to everything. Breath and controlling your breath, and so yes, have to remember to
I know
breathe.
many are,
It's very
Wim Hof
important.
comes up every day now
Deep
because
breath.
deep breathing.
Hmm. Yes. Very important.
And yeah, so because I did want to kind of mention this, I guess, because I can sketch. So let's do a final 10-minute rant here and wrap it up. So you can talk about whatever you want, and I'll sketch everything you're saying. We'll see if we can play this
Oh,
game. I don't know. Did you
okay.
notice it earlier? I thought it was pretty fun. I want to have some fun
Yeah, it was
here.
excellent. Yeah, I loved it.
So let's, yeah. Let's talk
My
about a future
last 10
topic.
minutes.
What does Electric Universe look like in 2, 5, and 10 years?
Wow. Uh, you mean how much people know?
What does a world
The
look like where
development?
no, like actually this would be
Oh,
real
the
this would
actual
be
world, the
realistic.
world,
Let's say
the
YouTube
development,
let's say YouTube and these channels
cosmology.
basically
Oh,
kept growing, right?
oh, yeah.
And we had chats like this. Let's say 2 years there were 100 people, 5 years there were 500 people. Um, what would the world look like with scientists actually engaged with this sort of stuff? Like people creating new vehicles. Like what does the world look like? Futurism, but with this real science.
Well, well, I mean, you just have to look back and see what Tesla, the world of Tesla, what it could have been since he was around and what didn't happen. So I don't see a lot happening. I mean, I'm being very pessimistic because they haven't let it happen because they control people through energy. And paying their high energy bills is how everyone is kept on track. But if I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong, then some kind of miraculous change happens. I don't know. Maybe the sun goes into a brown dwarf state, and then things are going to get cool and interesting, and then we'll all might have different possibilities of, I don't know, like heightened states of being and being able to be telepathic and I don't know, do superhero kind of things that maybe people were more able to do before. Or fly, I don't know, something really cool could have happened. And it's possible because we know that the sun, oh yeah, the stars, um, they don't have the life that most people believe, that they go from young, old, and then they, from their being a white star to a giant, red giant, and then they explode. No, that's all. It's changing. It can change any moment. A star can change instantly if the current of the Birkeland current they're traveling on changes. So if there's some kind of energy that is coming from the center of the galaxy, that might, like the Mayans said, that there's supposed to be um, electrical pulses coming out from Hunabku, which is the center, the core of the galaxy, which is a sun, a giant sun. There's no black holes in there. It's just a giant sun, and or energy, a producer of energy. And yeah, things could get beautiful and very interesting. And yeah, there's always change, always change. Change is the norm. And I'm running out of things to say. Do you want to
Awesome.
say something,
I
Chris?
tried. That was great, Tess. Awesome. No, it's
Thank you,
just
Chris.
totally funny and awesome and beautiful and eloquent. So,
Okay.
cool, everybody. Let's check the chat room and see if anybody has any questions, and we can call it. Unless you want to talk about other stuff, like I know we're supposed to head on over to the Electric View, but I don't know. To be perfectly honest,
Well, we
I
can
know.
ask Shockwave. Are they going to start in 2 hours?
Oh, right.
Yeah. Well, let's ask him when is it going to start, because I
Yeah.
know that Robert Burke was going to be on maybe 3 o'clock, which is like,
Yeah, because I need to also get lunch
what time
too.
is it? Yeah,
It's
what time
it's
is it there,
1:25
Chris?
Eastern,
Okay.
which is
So
fine. Like I'm really not on a schedule. I just am paying
no, but you
attention
need
to
lunch.
time. Yeah, no.
Yes,
Also
yes,
not a
you need to
rush.
eat.
I mean, before we do like a
Okay.
3 hour show, I'd have to get lunch.
Oh yes, no worries.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, I might actually skip today's show with all respect because I think I've done so
Mm-hmm.
many shows and I'm gonna do the moon later and I'm gonna do the
Oh
Orion late at
yeah.
night. So this was really fantastic, Tess. Let's go through. Let's see. Esoteric Cat, what's up? And Miguel, what's up? Philip Blair, how's it going? I believe Esoteric Cat says, I believe the food of the gods has a lot to do with the giants, but it's a long explanation.
Chris, but you never got to tell me your side of your experience with New Age. Well, you said it was a little bit similar to mine. You kind of did, but do you
Yeah,
want to add anything
I guess it was
to?
more about like, yeah, after 2012 didn't happen. and I did
Mhm.
shrooms for like a whole month up until 2012. I
Mhm.
was watching an amazing show. I was like, if the world ends tonight, all good.
Mhm.
But I didn't really feel it inside. Like I didn't have the feeling that I have today, which is I have to die to have this life, which is this beautiful feeling that I live with. It's not for everybody, but that's how I live. To
Mhm.
have a good death every night, right? Or a good, sorry, like to sleep well, knowing that if you didn't wake up,
Good death every night. Okay. Yes, yes.
to have a
To
good
live
death.
life as if it was your last day.
Yes, essentially. But
Okay.
really the
And what do you
mindset.
think comes next? What do you think comes
I
next after
think
death?
really, like, I heard it and I'm totally ripping it off old philosophy from the 40s, but they say it's a little death. Dreams are a little death. So basically we just practice for death every single night. We're very practiced for death.
Yeah.
And then it's either a dream that you can't wake up from or it's instantly back into birth. And then you basically
Yes.
grow up and they reinform you and I don't know what it was like exactly that year right after being born. I don't know if I have those memories. Maybe that's due to the plasma layer receding, and the because essentially it's a snap, right? Being born is a discharge,
Oh
and
yeah.
dying is probably also a snap, just like the magnetic reconnection. Now, is
Yeah.
memory retained? I don't know if memory is retained because if memory is in, like Eileen McCusick and Rupert Sheldrake talk about, in these bubble plasma shells, where your body is like a 36-foot bubble containing all your life, right? Let's say you
Yes.
die and that collapses into a single point. Your life flashes before your eyes, right? This is the white light, is because all these plasma sheaths are collapsing to one point. This is the 28 grams of blue light that they talk about. Um, and so this is my interpretation, and then this energy, which clearly has to be retained within this system that we live in, with this counter space matter antimatter, dipolar dielectric dipolar conscious field. That's how I view it. We're in a big fishbowl that's
Mhm.
conscious, and there's some reverberation causing all these pinches to happen. And the pinches happen because the 99% around it hold these pinches in place, like words on a page. People don't look at the page and say, wow, what a cool piece of paper. They immediately go for the words, and they go for the information in the words. They don't even look at the geometry of the letters. They look, oh, wow, this means hello, so they read that. They don't look and see all the shapes of the geometry, and then they further definitely don't say, wow, this if I didn't have this paper here, I couldn't read these words. So I think that's what dark matter is. That's what death or counter space or antimatter is. It's the page by which we read matter.
Yeah,
Uh,
and Chris, maybe some other time, we should talk about the. What do you think about beings or energies that can take or come into someone's? What do you think about the psychically etheric,
it all
beings? Not
works.
so much physical, but we can talk about this some other time
Let
or now. What
well
do you
let's
think about that and
let me
people?
sketch it. Let me sketch it. The reason I feel like all entities are possible, nothing is actually strange, is because along plasma filaments, the squatter man shape, right? Like a twisting filament or a spinal column or a centipede or the little filaments in our spinal column, right, have grow out like this, almost like a stitch pattern, and etheric entities grow like this. I mean, it almost mimics the same geometry. That's what we look like that, and then trees grow and they also look like that. And then apples grow on the trees and they look like that. And if you looked at the molecules of an apple, they would probably look just like this, but, hexagon bubbles. And I think etheric entities absolutely could exist. Like they could be as sentient as their magnitude. So humans, we have this idea of like we're different than animals and we're different than plants because we have the Kardashians. We have this very threaded culture that seems so disparate to plants and animals and fish. We're like, it's so different. Humans just are different. Animals are surviving, but humans are different. And I think it's not true. I think at every level there's a magnitude of plasma and there's a complexity or resonance of plasma. So Earthlings happen to have a size and an awareness and a complexity to self to be self-aware at this level. And that's all that culture really is. Like our interaction is very similar to planets. It's very similar to quarks and leptons uh,
Yeah.
and there needs to be somebody saying, "Hey, like Eileen is right, Rupert is right. Um, the sun, the universe is electric. Now what?" Versus, "Is it electric? Maybe it's
Right.
electric, guys. Is it electric?"
Well,
Man, I'm gonna
yeah,
I'm gonna grow old and gray before somebody says, "Well, yes, it is. Now what?"
I do suggest exactly. Well, speaking of that, I do suggest that people take very serious, depending on how they want to feel on their day-to-day life, um, like soaking up energies from other people, to know that when you're in a in a place where there's a lot of like a crowded place, you are actually absorbing other people's energies and other people's mental states, because that's our energy field. And if you're more empathic and more sensitive, even you absorb even more, or you sense it like instantly. Some people don't sense it until later on, or they just don't know why they feel one way or the other. So I would suggest people just be aware of that, know that it matters who's around them and how it affects your state of being. If you get balanced, out of balance, if you get anxious, if you're angry, if you're happy, if you're pissed, I think it's very important that it's not only like, like even also having sex with a person, that you're taking in all the older, like not only karma, or I don't want to say karma, I don't know if I believe in karma per se, but their whole psychic energy, you're absorbing it and it's affecting your body. And that's kind of demonstrated by like biofield viewer and a lot of people that are sensitive, that can do Reiki. I do Reiki, I have that, but people could sense on me that and they were saying like, who is your partner? And I was like, why? Well, they were saying, well, they're dragging you down, like they're really and they didn't know anything about this person I was with, but they were right. And it's true. I don't only say it because it's the energy, it's electricity, and there's frequencies, and we're resonant, and there's resonance.
Well,
So I think that's important.
let's talk about Eileen. Actually, she gets not a lot of love. Like Eileen McCusick, right,
Yeah.
talks about the human biofield. So she's not just
Yes.
like a new age healer. What she's
Exactly.
talking about is really that, there's a core, like this plasmoid essentially, and then there are these
Mm-hmm.
shells of
Right.
information around the human body, around every, in my opinion, around all particles basically, or every what you'd think of as a particle, or the tiniest point of information or materialization. And so we live in a reality now, or in a place in time where people believe that all information and memories are stored within the skull. They really do.
Yes.
We live in, like, I mean, you ask your average person or kid, they're like, "Oh, they're in my head. It's all in my head."
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
reinforced the paradigm of information exists solely inside this bubble, which is the
Mm-hmm.
head. The neck is the
Mm-hmm.
pinch, and the torso is another bubble, and the waist is a pinch,
Right.
and the hip is another like split bubble. But the point that I'm trying to make is that if like a huge paradigm shift would happen if people understood that information was actually stored outside the body, and that you stored and hence you're able to store every interaction that's ever happened to you. This becomes an
Yes.
entirely different
Yes.
shift or thought process.
Yes, that's exactly what Eileen talks about. And she talks about not being aware of that, and oh well, becoming aware of that, how everything it's imprinted in your field, which could be spread out far, and we can contract our fields also, like voluntarily. I've learned to do that because I'm very sensitive. I'm an empathic person, and sometimes I feel sick when I'm around a lot of people. I just feel physically sick. So I've learned how to contract my plasma sheath, yes, I guess I guess it's a plasma sheath, my biosphere, and protected. And then when I feel like I'm in nature and or with loving people, I can just expand it, and I just let it expand and just soak everything and just take in all the beautiful energy. Animals are usually really loving too, so it's good. And I try to leave away from people because I'm very sensitive, and I don't want to be depressed all the time. So that works for me. So I want to also acknowledge that, and you can consciously heal. I mean, I've been healing for a long time, or trying to heal, because I did have a lot of problems. Like I guess everyone has a lot of emotional problems and depression. I would be depressed since I was 13 or 14. Just get really, really depressed and just wanted to die, and just didn't want to be in this world anymore. And I was just a child, really. It's ridiculous. So, but I think it's just learning how to take care of our energetic field, just like we take care of our body by exercising and eating, and eating healthy. Well, if we can, some people don't, but if you care, and also take care of your energetic field, your energy field, also with thoughts, like you're saying, or what you think, the words, the power of words. But your physical energy, it gets affected by people, by other people, and thoughts, of course, and words, definitely. And so yeah, just something to make people aware of and to think about. And if they want to feel better, if they're feeling bad, and just be aware of that, and listening to beautiful music, just like the music you play, which is healing. Just listening to music that makes you feel good and raises your I don't like saying your frequency, because that's so new age. But maybe, I don't know how to
I
put it.
Yeah,
It
let me
makes
talk about.
your
I can tell people what, because I think it sounds also a little
yeah.
bit from my point. Sometimes I say, oh, music is toxic or it's bad, and I try and
Well,
replace
it can be.
bad music
Yeah.
with good.
Oh,
But it's really
yeah.
true though. Like
I
music is
can't
like
listen to
anything.
terrible music.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes me sick. Some kind of music makes me sick. Like most of the modern music, it's just sickening.
I've pinpointed it. If anybody's interested, really, what the three things that really happened are, um, the standard was lowered, because it's the same thing with movies and scripts. The business guys got together, Disney, got together and decided, if you want to make a reliable hit, you have to lower the bar. So now, while they pretend that people can sing and that songs are funky, or any number of things, the rhetoric is just like the science. It's this pompous language about, this is the greatest star since, this is the best artist since, she's the biggest pop star ever, she's a queen, they're a king. And people are like, okay, I guess it's true because they're everywhere. And they never say, well, no, my conviction is more
A new
important than
star is
that.
born.
Yeah.
Ascension and stars and bloodlines.
Yeah, well, the other thing is exactly
It's really that.
the encoded message, but they're
Yeah.
talking to one another. They're basically flaunting and you know, the best way to have a secret is to put it in plain sight, right? So this stuff is not fake. That's I think, a big misinterpretation as well. There are all these conspiracies where, like, it's all fake. I'm like, no, actually, it's a
Oh
lot of it is
no.
real. The
Yeah.
interpretation is
Mm-hmm.
misdirected. A lot of it is real. I would bet that half a ton of the technologies in Star Trek, Star Wars all already exist to some degree, or have been
Oh, it's
tested.
probably something better. Probably
Yeah,
something
for
much
sure.
more incredible that
For
we have
sure.
no idea.
There's no
Yeah.
reason to be worried about the surveillance state. Oh, this is what I want to say. So,
Mm-hmm.
the reason annihilation doesn't happen really in day to day, why people basically, well, that's not to say there is annihilation that's happening. I just mean, like,
Yeah.
these group of people that basically run the destruction on Earth only
Yeah.
run it in relation to everyone else. So in a way, they need the human race to make them relevant. It's like this dichotomy they play on in Joker and Batman. Without Joker, Batman's not Batman. And without
Right.
Batman, Joker has no hero to, like, to screw up his plan.
Yes.
they coexist, and it's a beautiful Zen teaching to really to look at, these the hidden hand of the Illuminati, or the government, the black, the community, any number of words that you have for these people. They only exist because we allow them to exist by making them what they say they are. If no one if no one believed in them, they wouldn't exist in a way. And I know
Oh,
that that's
I wish that was true. Oh my
no, but
goodness.
that's what I'm
Wish
saying.
them
Like deep
away? Like
down,
let's stop thinking about them?
no, not
Or
wishing
what?
them away, but the
No, no,
relevancy
no,
of
like
them.
or stop thinking.
No, well,
Okay.
the nuance there is that if you're never going to try because you're always going to be foisted by this hidden
Mm-hmm.
hand, then you never
Mm-hmm.
try. And that's not the
No.
Zen teaching is once you get illuminated, it's not to stop trying, right? Once you
Mm-hmm.
understand that life is basically pointless, it's not to say, okay, screw it, I'm going to sleep on the street and stop eating and stop showering. No, it's to live a good life with the
Right.
awareness that it's all pointless. So I
Pretend
feel
like everything's wonderful.
what?
No, no, no. I get you what you're
Not
saying.
pointless, but
That's good.
experiential. Like it can't be all
Yeah.
good and it can't be all bad. You can't eat sugar all
Yeah.
night and you can't drink
No.
to as infinite amount, You have to have moderation in order to enjoy things. So life is about enjoying whatever you want in a sort of balance. It's not 50-50. It's the zhuzh. It's the little give and take of it. You have to, it's like a 60-40 split, or who knows? Some people are extremists. So
Mm-hmm.
but it could
Mm-hmm.
be
Oh yeah.
related to plasma shells. Honestly, I love the idea of relating culture to physical shell manifestation. It brings in astrology
Yeah.
and it brings in New Age and it applies a framework for it, physically.
Yes, which
Yeah.
yeah, the Earth has its own plasma sheath. We have our own plasma sheath. Everything has a plasma sheath, and the way it interacts and the way it affects each other too. That's another thing I've been reading with the comets. And I've been trying to figure this out, and I've been starting to learn a little bit about ether, how there's different types of ether, and a friend of mine is getting into that and sending me some interesting information. Um, when there's these cometary discharges, when the comets connect with Earth, and they could be connected from far, far, far away, or they can affect the sun, and then the sun sends energy, solar flares, and then that affects us emotionally. But it seems like there was a lot of madness on people and animals. Animals, cats and dogs, I've been reading, they're going crazy. They're going mad. And I'm thinking, why is this energy, why is it being detrimental like that? Why doesn't this energy coming in makes us more enlightened or happier or be able to do certain things that we couldn't do otherwise? And I'm still trying to figure that out. Why is it like that? And what does it take for that energy to be changed? So I'm just really thinking about this. What is the energy, the frequencies? Is there certain frequencies? Why is it doing that? Why is the sun and the comets doing that to Earth and the people and the animals? And that's something that it's
Well,
yeah.
my hypothesis is that there's a couple of rule sets. There's the geometry, and then there is this conscious energy. And with that, with pinching, compression, and rarefaction, you get everything. You get awareness, you get culture, you get language, you get shapes, you get aliens, you get apples, you get spacecraft, and you get everything with this very simple rule set. And I think that's just a good place to start. Like, we don't have the answer to it, right? But I think that thinking that we live in a disconnected universe is completely off track. And thinking that we live in an electrically static space is completely off track. Neti neti neti, but it's definitely not islands in space. It's fully branches, like your hand. If you look at your hand, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. It already looks like filamentary networks of plasma. Likely, our hand is probably what our local supercluster also looks like. It's a stretch to think about it that way, but I would bet looking at the moon and looking at Orion side by side, which I've been doing for the last couple of nights, you'll see that Mare Imbrium basically has a signature of Orion in it. It's the same sort of structure. And, my gut is after 5 years of doing this, 1,000 shows or whatever, 1,000 hours or more, you can see it. This is the conjugate structure, the geometry, and what we consider light or radiance is happening in terms of what it's not. So counter space is holding it all in place. And that's really wonderful to think about it that way. It's like the foam, it's like bubbles, but it's not empty. So it's fulfilled. So we're at a place where science can move forward from a place of empowerment and fulfillment instead of disempowerment and disconnectedness and being flung into the Goldilocks zone of the solar system. Like, oh yeah, we're all abandoned, we're orphaned. This is part of the history stuff. Well, teaching the human race that we've been abandoned by the mother, right? And that it's somehow the fault of the terrible mother to destroy her children, right?
Oh,
However,
yeah.
this is necessity. When you look at it through the geometry, you're like, well, no, this is the mother fulfilling the role perfectly. You must. Well, you don't have to enjoy it. I do, but for me, the I think the Hindu philosophy like pointed to it very distinctly. The raging head, the fire of Kali, cutting down Shiva, and the twisting of the interconnectedness
Yeah.
of the married couple, and then freedom and release, and then massive catastrophism, all embodied in these deities, so-called deities that the Hindus talked about.
Oh,
To,
yeah.
to me, this is fulfillment of this is perfection because we're here. Now, philosophically, we could have a discussion as to like being here. Is it so great? You know, is it really
Yeah.
that great? But for me, uh, I don't know if I can even go there yet because it's just one of those
Yeah.
things where what's the point of questioning that when I have so much to unlearn? There's so much to unlearn from what I've been indoctrinated with. So right now
Mm-hmm.
it's just about steady state, but the idea of like these shells, this conjugate geometry, this tiny percent matter, which is held together by the page, and I think it's very beautiful to think about it as a chapter in science that we happen to carry the torch through.
Yeah. Oh, esoteric cat. I'm sorry. I'm maybe changing the subject
It's
here.
fine.
Wants to hear more of what she says. She thinks about mythology and the ancient red-haired giants.
The
Well,
floor is yours.
I wrote a lot about them in my book Mythos and Cosmogony. Well, you can hear the audiobooks. I made them into audiobooks so you don't have to read, because I know it hurts my eyes to read. Sometimes I'm like, oh God, my head, like I can't read. So I put it into audiobooks. But yes, they were part of the rulers. There were some, according to the ancients, they came either from heaven or from the stars or from other stars. They arrived, they gave them knowledge, they ruled over the people, and they were all knowing. Well, all knowing because the people on earth didn't have the scientific knowledge of astronomy, metallurgy, and everything basically that we have in our current civilization was taught by them. Everything, like building the dams, everything. So, and mythology is filled with them, and not only mythology, but the kings and the you look at the kings, the depictions of the kings and the queens of ancient time throughout time, and they're mostly redheaded, blonde, redheaded, blue-eyed, green-eyed, light eye color, eye colored. Now the red hair gene is very what's it called? It doesn't show up. So if there's a person that has red hair, it's very unlikely. Maybe their kids will have red hair, but then it will get lost down the bloodline. So it doesn't. It's recessive. It's a recessive gene. It's not easily comes up. And the same with the blue and the green eyes. Brown eyes tend to be more the gene that takes over. So I have brown eyes. I don't have green. I have Rh negative blood, O negative, which is supposed to be like the the blood of these people, but I don't have brown eyes. They're hazel. Hazel is another color that is kind of related to them, hazel. But yeah, there is. Look at the old paintings, all these beautiful paintings, and the people have red, beautiful, wavy and reddish or
Let me
auburn
suggest,
hair color.
just from a rudimentary aspect, let's say, as far as I understand, the way hair shows color is through reflectivity. And objects that we see in life, like plants or animals or planets, we see the color coming at us because they reflect certain bands of light and they don't reflect others. So reflection really is a
Interesting. Yes.
so
Isn't that
reflection
cool?
is what I was talking about earlier, this kind of mutual mass acceleration towards a certain point. So between us, let's say if you're looking at somebody and they have red hair, the red hair and your eyes create a point that both of you are magnetized to it. And you perceive
Mm-hmm.
this color of red. It's the focal point. So
Yes.
I think if you tie in coloring to shift in frequency in spectrum, band spectrum, you'll realize that it's about nanometers of light bands, right? It's about, the spectrum. So you guess you don't have green hair necessarily, but you do have red
Mm-hmm.
hair and you have black hair. So hair tends to be along you don't have blue hair naturally, right? So essentially all the way along the spectrum you'll get to red, and red in different value systems. Values are basically could be interpreted as charge,
Mm-hmm. Right.
and so you only have brown, golden brown, light brown, blonde, all values that exist towards the red part of the spectrum, 700 at 700 nanometers, I believe. So, but yeah, so hair color, I would assume, different than eye color, has a certain type of reflective property based on its structure and its Birkeland current flowing through it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
yeah,
then he
so
became the evil. Then he became known as evil when the church took over during since the 1300s, 1400s, or even before that. The red hair color, which used to be like wow, beautiful and amazing, then it became to be the evil color of people, and that's why it became sort of like throughout history, like, well, in the recent times since the 1300s, it was the red-headed child, that it's the bad kid, or the witch with the red hair that were portrayed with the red hair, or
think
in
about
all these movies.
the red eyes though too. The
Oh, yeah,
Superman
that's
or the
different.
witches,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
but to
But yeah, they make them
portray,
red.
yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's also something that happened with the red hair color, that it got to
It
be
wasn't a red herring.
demonized. No, but it had nothing to do with evil. Nothing. It's just all about the bloodline. They're opposite bloodlines. Yeah.
Yeah, so hair color, eye color, color in general from the skin determined by
Hmm.
frequency of light, by vibration of light,
Yes.
essentially. So that's,
Yes, and
yeah.
well, that's another thing, that why it seemed like these people came from possibly another planet, another place where they needed to have those colors to survive. And then when they arrived here, they were the dark hair and dark skin. But then that yeah, then I was thinking about that, because then that was if these people were within the red dwarf, then everything would have been different anyways. So it's not like the sun that we know today. So then that's something to think about. But that's one of the
Um,
ideas that they
yeah,
that,
let
that
me
they
add
say.
to
Well,
that.
they needed different. Yeah, it was a different environment. So
Have you done any
yeah.
research on the Dogons?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I know we talk about, I've heard people discuss Dogon stuff, but the one thing that stood out to me that was different is that they claim to have the Ark of the Covenant, and they also get cataracts from guarding the Ark of the Covenant.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, I think the Ark of the Covenant is one of these extremely radioactive plasma remnants that probably tore across Africa. And, looking at it or touching it creates essentially dendritic filaments coming out of the eyeballs. I mean, think about what happens to the eyes when you get cataracts, like terrible cataracts, or the eyeballs, basically, disease of the human eye. Looks like bacteria, looks like cells. It looks like Copernicus. It looks like Orion. It really does. Like our eyeballs are basically
Interesting. It's a
perfect,
good point.
are celestial objects. They joke about it in tons of movies, like
Yeah.
Guardians of the Galaxy. They go into a giant head, and tons of movies, Star Trek, Star Wars. They're always talking about being inside a giant. And ultimately, actually, that's a place to go with real giants. So there's this guy. When I first started researching stuff about 5 years ago, no, that's not true. When I first started really diverging from researching 5 years ago, I found this guy who was talking about we exist in the lens of an eyeball. And he never really said it was a real giant. He always just said we exist in the eye of God. But if you take that to physics and you're like, wait, is it biocosmology? Are we living inside a creature that looks recursively like us at a massive scale? Like, are we inside
That's
the
hilarious.
lens of an eyeball, or are we like some cell that flows through the networks of a giant, like the size of,
That's funny.
20 superclusters? Are we in a leg? And I'm like, man, that is fucking unbelievable to consider, and amazing as well.
Crazy. Yes. Yeah, but so what we're looking at? Oh, okay. So what we're looking is through the cornea of the giant and looking up.
The sun.
So
well, it used to be. His theory was like the sun was like the portal, but I don't think so. I think the sun is just like a lymph node, like in our legs, like when you see those lumps in your leg.
Oh, that's funny. Oh, there you go. Oh, that's funny.
We don't see the nerves because the nerves are in dark mode, but we see them in X-ray or in Chandra X-ray. You see basically everything around the sun. These magnetic filaments look just like our legs and our hands. If you look at your hands, it's dendritic filaments that look like lightning bolts. It looks like land geology, lunar geology. It's like already there. The geometry, and everybody has the two. I mean, if you look at it, I have it, but it's the valley between it's the vesica piscis about to be formed. So it's the curve and the curve. It's the apple core.
Yes.
It's right in your hand. And your fingers are Z pinches at the knuckles. I mean, we are the imprint of the universal shape.
Yes, exactly. It's the way energy, I don't know, expresses itself. The way energy expresses in life, and it follows the same model, right? From the tiny to the most gigantic size of things that exist. It's
microverse, Morty. You can't just put some word next to verse and call it something. No. You watch Rick and Morty, Tess? Or no? It's just a very pessimistic cartoon. One of the few shows that I still watch. I don't know. Yeah. So let's see. We talked about giants. I was talking about, like I used to watch Gaia. I'll address that specifically. David Wilcock and Corey Good had a whole podcast where they went to Mars and they saw the enslaved camp people. And the whole story, they didn't mention looking back at Earth once. And I was like, really? You go to space for the first time and you don't look around and be like, damn, look at all those satellites and look at like all the, I mean, because you had to go through space, you have to see those things. Or, they didn't talk about going to Mars and approaching Mars. That's the first thing you would do as a traveler to Mars. Okay.
Of course.
Let's say they went.
How do they travel allegedly in a jump room?
Let's say they go in a jump room with that guy who never ran for president.
Yes.
No, I mean, but what a false promise, right? It was like. Yeah,
Basiago.
Exactly.
Andrew Basiago.
Andy Basiago. Really good story, though. Really
We
good
fell in
story
the
there.
same rabbit hole. Oh yeah, it was fun.
Look, Drunvalo Melchizedek is still still trotting around. Now, I feel like we're mocking unfairly, but man, I felt that
No,
those
but it's
people really
true. It's not
really were
fair.
not, yeah, not
It's
fair,
not fair. I'm sorry. We have to out them
reappropriating.
for what they are. No,
To be
yeah,
fair,
taking people's
like,
money.
sadly Rupert Sheldrake
Hmm.
was thrown into that, and he's not that.
Right.
He is religious,
Ah,
definitely. He's definitely deeply religious, but
yes. It
morphogenic field
exists.
is 100% science.
Yep. Yeah, and that's the problem. You put people like that with people like that, and then it's all convoluted. It's all in the same convoluted bucket of weird
So,
information.
yeah, so they went to Mars, and they were the only ones to do
Oh,
it. David Wilcock had no training at all to go to space or live on Mars, but he went anyway just because they were like, "Come on, man, David, please come play jazz."
yeah.
What? I can't believe I
You're
paid
so
any money for that
funny.
stuff. Anyway, so I got that was like 6 years ago now, and
Uh-huh.
but I had been watching, to be fair, Ben Davidson's Suspicious Observers from like
Okay.
2011 maybe,
Okay.
and even
Mm-hmm.
before, because really around 2012, when everyone's like the world's going to end, he had a ton of stuff on Suspicious Observers, right? What I find
Right.
in retrospect, in hindsight, like recently I saw that Ben actually met Billy Yelverton, and he was doing
Oh,
plasma discharge in the laboratory experiments in 2010. So all
wow.
kudos to Ben Davidson for being like way early, like
Yep.
as early as possible, right? With really what broke it for me is I got a telescope, looked at the moon. Oh, I'm like spheres, planetary scarring, and it was done. I was like, okay, this is what's going on. Like, this is why we don't have a real space program, because if they showed you, it would be obvious that it's not Big Bang related, it's not impact related, it's fully connected, it's fully electric, it's carved. It looks like us, we look like it. It's the holistic awareness. It's the psychedelic experience. I mean, people want to go
What?
on DMT, but without knowing what you're going
No.
for, you're not going to see this. You'll see the
No.
geometry, but
Just meditate. Just breathe. Do it with breathing. You can do it. I was going to ask you, did you hear about Widener and Carrigood, that debacle, that drama? Speaking
I
of
literally like
Gaia,
avoid all of it since
I just heard
2014.
about it like recently, and I was like, "What?" Yeah, he just basically said they were all full of it.
Well,
Basically,
it's
that's
sad
what it.
because
So there you
I
go.
don't blame
You already
Thunderbolt.
knew it.
I don't blame
Mm-hmm.
the Thunderbolts team for wanting to reach a wider audience, but it really sullies the whole thing because these guys are not out to help us. Even Graham Hancock is not. People think he
No,
is, but like Joe
no,
Rogan, these
no. It's
guys,
deceitful.
they're aware of Tesla, they're aware of this stuff. It's
Yeah,
obvious at this point. Other
Velikovsky.
days can't go by with people not looking at what's obvious information. It's like
Yes,
yeah, it's very obvious to me.
yes,
I don't mean to sound like,
yes.
oh, nefarious or
No, well, it's
whatever.
a
It's
big no,
logical.
no, no. It's what it is.
Business.
Yes, it's a big effort. It's a big effort, and I don't know if these people do it purposely or if they're really that naive or if they get paid for it. I have no idea why would they do it, but they do it, and that's some other question there to be asked for themselves for themselves to know, because I'm
Let,
not going to go. I don't care.
actually,
That they can do their own thing.
I have something here. The
Yeah.
heart of the matter is saying something that always kind of doesn't trigger me, but it triggers me into talking about this. Says, if it's any
Hmm.
consolation, the aliens hate us too. It's this the global, the sweeping
Oh boy.
generalization of mankind is a cancer on Earth. We've destroyed the planet. We totally suck.
Oh,
Without
well,
media,
there you go. That's the
this
guilt
paradigm,
trip.
yeah, this paradigm
The
almost
guilt
wouldn't
trip.
exist without the reinforced propaganda, because it's ridiculous. It makes no physical sense. Like, we exist. We don't not exist. So this idea that we're cancer and aliens hate us, they would never come to Earth because we're so damn stupid. So then get smart, buddy. You know? Like, I'm not talking to anybody in the chat. I just mean, like, in general, this idea, if you really feel that disempowered, then
If
get
the shoe
smart.
fits, put it on. But if
If
it
you're
doesn't,
Yeah, if you're smart enough to know about aliens and think about aliens, but you're you're and you're smart enough to self-deprecate. I mean, that's really what it is. People
Yeah.
are actually not dumb. People are smart, but they're
No.
using their smarts to bully themselves as opposed to empower themselves
Yeah.
with knowledge and then share it with
Yes.
other people. So everyone wants to be a teacher, but not nobody really wants to be a student. And the best teachers are still really students ultimately, right? Like Tess, you could show your resume and be like, I'm done here. But no, you're going to probably write a ton more stuff, right?
Maybe, yes. Sometimes I get tired of it and I'm like, oh, why am I doing this? It's just giving me a headache. No, it doesn't. No, it's amazing. It's just very, yes, wow. Yeah, it's just
so
wow. People have
so I
no
think the
clue.
way to fix that whole human is cancer
Oh
um,
no, yes, that's just
is to say
terrible.
it's not,
Right.
because if it were,
Mhm.
we would have terrible lives. But people are actually on YouTube commenting. That's
Well,
super
there are
luxury.
all kinds of people. There are all kinds of
Yeah,
people. There are really amazing people and there are really crappy people. That's what it is.
yeah.
And the aliens, I think the aliens, if there's aliens, I would go, if I was them, I would go to a red dwarf or a brown dwarf. I wouldn't come to this planet. It's very tough. It's very, very tough. But
I
it's not that
also
we're destroying it. It's like just read or watch the little short videos that I've been putting out and I'm going to continue putting out. It's unreal the catastrophes that people have been putting up with, and it's coming from outside, from comets and from the sun. It's not the people.
Right. Actually, this is a good segue back. Like,
But yeah,
because in the
people
beginning you brought up a lot. In the beginning, you brought up a
in
lot
the beginning.
of good topics that I wanted
Info.
to talk about. But yeah, the idea of a comet coming and exciting
Mm-hmm.
certain elements into a fractal geometry that turned into life is a very viable possibility. One. Similarly, seeing
Oh,
people
it
who are
is. Yes.
Neanderthalic be zapped by a giant comet, or the discharge that happened on Earth, or Earth growing, or Earth having water, very quickly could variate this
Mm-hmm.
shape from a giant
Yes.
20-foot tall ape to a human. So,
Yes.
like,
Yes.
there is this kind of thing that's like Darwin. Now evolution hating is trendy, right? But
Right.
variance can easily explain the evidence of evolution, because you're never going to get evolutionary psychologists and people who study that to give it up entirely. How can we bring people together? That's really, I know it sounds idealistic, but this is what it's about. It's like saying, hey, like, you believe the shape of the earth is a certain way. What does that matter even? Let's get together and work on some science. Oh, you
Do
believe
you
that? Yeah.
do you know about the Ebner effect? Speaking of mutations, fast mutations with electricity.
It's exactly real. I mean, I
Yes,
feel
well, it
like
is
I'm
proven. Yeah, they do it in the
preaching to
lab.
the choir here, but
Yeah, so of course, and we're mutating constantly, 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 and species cease to exist because they're not mutating with what it's happening. And of course there's pollution and it's horrible things happening on the planet on top of what the natural cosmos is doing to us, which I just don't understand. But it's like, yeah,
but
we need more.
but I think it's
It's
important to
constant
think.
mutation.
Let's go
Mm-hmm.
specific for a second. Saber-toothed tigers are just larger versions of the same Z-pinch with teeth that kind of emanated along a certain magnetic field line. Mammoths are the same thing, larger versions of elephants with bigger tusks that emanated in the same field lines. Humans may have been bigger versions of us. Alien greys are the same shape as humans. Go to any
Mm-hmm.
ocean, like deep dive, or actually forget it, just go to YouTube and type cute underwater creatures that act like humans. And you'll find hundreds of
Wow.
examples of fish that look like people's faces, that use tools, that have full awareness.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and you can go upwards into space and look at plasma bubbles and quasars and nebulas and cat's eye things, and you're like, oh my god, it's just like an eyeball. It's just like a cat. It's just like a Pegasus. And never
Mm-hmm.
making the jump of like, oh, it's like that because this, and therefore let's do this. Those are the two things that are missing from all science shows on YouTube. Even the guys who tell people to go take drugs, who are like, go do DMT, Tim Ferriss,
No,
and
that's not good. You know what?
without
I think
intent.
drugs. I
With
think drugs make people more easily to manipulate. That's what
It's
happens
both. It's
because
both. It's just directive.
yes,
It's
they
vector.
allow their psychic fields to open up or whatever, their wall, your protective wall to come down, and creepy stuff can come in that it shouldn't be there. I mean, if we're in this body and in our minds and this body controlling this body, I think it's like our responsibility. Well, it's not our responsibility, but it was given to us like a gift or like not a gift. It's us. And then if we just put those walls down, very strange stuff can start happening and people can start just losing it and going, getting paranoid, and just very easy to manipulate and very easy to believe anything they're told. That's what worries me about humans. They are so easy to manipulate, and anything that they hear, they believe it. And
Right.
I'm just like, wow, what a weird world.
Although
This is
Tess,
so
not to just go be like,
confusions,
at risk of
so much
sounding like devil's
confusion.
advocate here, but you know, I've said this before, but we have to take into account that you were able to break free, and I was able, or whatever.
No, I
If
know,
you,
and I'm not
so it's no, I
completely
just mean it's
right
important to
either.
highlight
Yeah,
both. In order to move
yeah.
forward, we need to say like, yes, it's difficult for people to. It's very easy to manipulate people. However, some people are not manipulated. I think it's important to validate. You have like this is where I think
How does
not.
that happen, Chris? How does that
I'll
happen?
give you a
What is
perfect
the reason?
example. Give you
What
a
is it?
perfect.
How does
No,
the
I'll give it to you.
miracle?
Well, the reason is efficiency, and obviously I operate on efficiency because I need to create a specific item. So I have to take in a lot of skills, like a song, let's say, or a stream. I have to do a lot of different things to make one thing.
Mhm.
Everybody who comes and experiences it, it's one thing. They don't think about all the things that I'm thinking about when I'm doing a show. So some people do, but not everybody. You could consider those people the same people as who are not seeing through the veil right now. They're just seeing one thing. And they're like, "Oh, that's cool." And then a few people come to the stream, they're like they know exactly what I'm doing, or they have some sense of
Right.
what I'm doing technically. It's like knowing a
Hmm.
cell phone and not knowing how to build one, right?
Right.
So the thought,
So,
let me just quickly finish the thought. The thought is, how does positive thinking work for me? Is if you have somebody and you're working on a project with them, you have to say, look, in the past, it's failed. However, it doesn't mean that it can't be done. If you don't say, however, it doesn't mean that it can't be done, I think even in physical plasma, you don't open the gateway for possibility. You immediately shut the door by self-deprecating. Deprecation is cutting. So, self-deprecation, when people say something very important, like when Neil he didn't mean to, but he undercut you by joking at the end of one of your long, like 2 minute things about how your emotions and how you felt. And I said, man, stop that, because this
yeah.
habit is what deprecates the situation. What you
Ah,
said was value. Like, I'm not trying to open old wounds. I just
no,
mean, like, that's a
no, thank
prime
you.
example of
Yes.
changing habits to help things move forward. So you could have just been done. Maybe you just needed catharsis. Maybe you didn't need validation. I'm not saying you needed to
Mm-hmm.
be pat on the back. I'm just saying you
Oh
didn't
no.
need to be undercut, but because we have a habit of doing it, it cuts possibility. So that means validation, like me telling you, yes, it's hard. Yes, Earth is difficult. Yes, there's a royal bloodline. Yes, there's a hidden hand. But
Damn.
also, we're doing this cool show. I have the sun
Why?
pulled up. There are cool people in the
Yes.
chat room. We're live today. It's good to validate all those qualia because it breeds plasma waves of that emotion. It's a real thing. It's not a fake thing. This is how I write. This is how I
I'm
work. And
honored.
it
I'm
works
honored
for
to
me.
know you, Chris. It's an honor. Yes,
Well,
I'm
thank you.
honored to know people like you.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, I was caught off guard by that, but thank you.
Yes, yes, and
Oh,
yeah.
I'm just
Well,
breathing.
we're here, right? When we're not here anymore,
Then we're not.
when
Then
that
you and I
day
can have a
come.
chat in the ether and be like,
Yes,
damn,
but
it
and then
really did suck. I was validated. Death
Yeah,
was the worst
finally,
thing.
like finally out of there.
Look, I
Oh,
think
I'm sure it's going to be better. I'm sure. I just know it's going to be better. I don't know what it's going to look like. And I don't know if we choose to. I think we can choose to what we want to experience next, hopefully. And hopefully, I mean, allegedly, I don't
right.
know. But we will know what was it all about, right? And
Well, I
where
think
how
look,
things work.
I love thinking about it. You know, I keep the future and the past close to my chest, but I really feel like that whole, like we just said, that whole validation is for me too. It's so I can go through my day and say like, yeah, this freaking sucks, man. Why am I even here? And also
Mm-hmm.
at the same time be like, no, I'm here. That's very important that I'm here, no matter what it
Mm-hmm.
is. And self-validation works by myself. It works. Um, I validate people who come in who have different opinions than me, and they want to share a space and be scientific, but they might share totally different opinions and cultural values than I do. Like allowing for that space to exist just by existing myself or having the stream exist is part of the validation that I think needs to happen in science instead of, oh, here come the retards, and it's bullies that are preempting people. It's not even now that there are dumb questions. Now there are people preempting dumb questions because of arrogance. But those people don't know much more. They think they know much more, but it's this energy of bullying and belittling, and it works for propaganda for brands to belittle people so that that brand sucks. Buy my brand. That's all it is. But science is not that, or it shouldn't be that. Right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and someone is asking about the Ebner effect. I think they want you to talk or us to talk more
Yeah,
about
please go
that.
for it.
Just
Go for it.
well, well, I was just thinking, you know how they use energy for or frequency or different people have come up with different technologies to heal, basically heal, physically heal. I'm not sure if emotionally heal, like Eileen, but they have come up with really cool technologies with using electricity and frequency with electricity. And I know that that was, of course, it was blocked right away because then, you know, that was not making money. It wouldn't make money. But I don't know if the Ebner effect could help us like go back to a better state of like avoiding these mutations that I was talking about, that nature it's mutating according to the radiation coming incoming. So maybe this world is supposed to mutate naturally. I'm not talking about the extra stuff put artificially by humans, but the natural radiation that comes in. I guess it's just the natural thing that it's supposed to happen. If someone wants to live a very very long life, then they could use this technology to counteract the DNA mutation, because the Ebner effect is just experiments in the laboratory using different electrical and what is it discharges on DNA on cells, and the DNA changing and actually healing, going back to a state that if he had been mutated, let's say like a GMO, that you did something to change the DNA, then it could revert it back to its original state. So I'm thinking that that could be definitely used, but it's not allowed because the people that have tried to come out with these amazing technologies have been, ended up really bad. Things ended really bad and sad for them. So obviously that's just the reality, that we can't really use them. Now, maybe somebody in their own house, if they make a contraption and they can heal themselves, that's really cool. But I don't really
Well,
see the purpose of it. What do you think, Chris? Like if we
so
were
the way I
trying to fight
interpret
the
Eileen's
natural
work,
change.
so Eileen is talking about these pressure, these places that she can feel when she combs
Yes.
people with these tuning forks. I bought that deluxe
Yes.
set
Yeah.
and I'm still learning how to
Yeah.
do
Me
it.
too. Me
But
too.
it's hard to,
I have
it's
it.
really you have to also believe it too. Like there's a lot of understanding the shells of plasma around the body in
Yes.
order to be able to really
Yeah.
tap into it, because we've been so tuned to this other type of thinking that it doesn't exist, that the information is all inside the body and not outside. So once you get into the
Right.
habit of thinking that the information is outside the body and knowing it, it becomes way easier. So when you're combing with the fork, you're creating a resonance with the fork. It's basically like waving your arms in water. You're creating these resonant
Yes.
waves. And transverse waves, when two ripples meet each other, they create flat lines. That's what those hexagons and bubble and circle packing look like. So transverse waves on the sun, in water, within plasma sheaths of people and life and people and earth, right? We're all colliding these bubbles and creating these node points. So I would imagine that as you grow older, every second is basically an oscillation from the heart or from the combined chakra force that is emanating a layer of plasma called 1 second of your life, a frame. And those frames are emanating outwards per second, creating these thin layers, ultimately forming thicker and thicker layers like gradiated fall off, like you see on sapphire. Those layers
Mm-hmm.
is time and life and experience all stored. That's the Akashic record. It happens for people, planets, particles, etc. So
Yes.
so that exists. So Eileen is talking about little discharge point, not discharge, but like pinches in this etheric plasma shell around your body that are traumatic experiences, whatever they may
Or
be,
stock
basically
energy,
stuck
right?
energy,
Energy that
basically.
is not flowing like the, I like that how the Chinese
Right.
say that the
The chi dot,
energy,
yeah.
yeah, just like acupressure, acupuncture, that if the energy is not flowing, you get disease, and you try to get the energy flowing, and
Right.
it's like a
So
barrier
so that's what I think it is. It's like
or
we
block.
we experience all these things. People get twisted knots, and you can cure those by discharge or reflowing this energy. But what I don't believe necessarily is you can do this forever. This idea of immortality. I think there's a fall off
No.
called consciousness,
Yeah.
which is about 100 and right now 100 to 150 years. Maybe it was longer, maybe it was shorter, but I don't. I literally
Yeah, and
think you could
emotions,
you could
right?
basically live a long life, healing yourself from these points using this technology, which they do, I bet. However, I don't think it makes
Oh.
you happy. I don't think it like it brings immortality.
Oh,
I
you
want to
did.
dissociate it from
Mhm.
this. It's this ultimate thing that if we
Yeah.
could heal ourselves, therefore we'd be happy. I don't think that's the case. I
Yeah.
think pain brings art, pain brings experience, dealing with pain brings courage.
Hmm.
Like trying, but it also is not to decry people who want to not have pain. Like I don't want to have pain, so I'm learning how to manage my pain. But at the same time,
Yes.
pain is part of this bigger story. So I don't want to, again, I want to validate pain as like, thank you for being there so I can learn how to cope with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, definitely, it's. I think that you can't avoid it. That's for sure. That is unavoidable. Even if temporarily people try to avoid it with use of, you know, I don't know, plants or chemicals that will take them out of their um, conscious state, so they can't feel their emotions. They come back, and when they come back, it comes back with a vengeance because they don't want to be ignored.
I would
Emotions
say
and
that,
pain doesn't want to be ignored, so it's
well, let
just
me,
better to acknowledge it
yeah,
and live
let's
with it.
consider this real quick just because I was thinking about it. I think about it regularly, but today especially. So the
Mm-hmm.
sun is supposed to be like almost 100 million miles away. I mean, look how much we see it, quote unquote, see it or experience it. The fact that we can means that there's some sort of connection between our eyeballs and the sun. It's not just empty space. And you could say
Right.
solar wind or current or light or resonance or the light. Basically, the popular science is light, blah, 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 travels from the sun and hits your eyeballs in 8 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
But really, there's a
Mm-hmm.
dance between our eyeballs, which are magnetized,
Mm-hmm.
and we magnetize resonant with the sun. And some point in between is what we see this focal compression of the wave, this point called
Yes.
focal, or called vanishing point or focal point. It's about 13 miles in the sky. So between us, a tiny eyeball, and the sun, which is this giant, potentially liquid metallic hydrogen plasma ball, um, the focal point that we focus on is about 13 to 15 miles up in the sky because of our plasma sheath on Earth.
Yes.
So
And everything
senses.
travel. So go ahead.
No, I just was going to say that we
Where you
have
perceive the sun.
incredible connections to everywhere in the universe right now, proven simply by this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, just I'm saying, like, the easy way to prove it to yourself to say that, oh my God, I can see stars, therefore I already have the ability to have these superpowers, or what people think are like, it's taken for granted because people are like, oh yeah, it's the moon, it's the sun, you know, stars. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
no, but you can
Mm-hmm.
experience these things that are basic magic, like, are basically magic on Earth.
Yes,
But you're
it
saying,
is.
no, they
Yeah.
exist. They're perfectly fine. Oh, the moon is so cute. I'm like, wait, do you understand what's going on? The
Mm-hmm.
weight of this? Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
so sun, you're
Yeah.
looking at it, almost 100 million miles. Somehow we have the awareness to put together technology with our hands and make these little branches called telescopes. Telescopes are tubes. We're tubes. Cameras are tubes and sensors, just like us. We build technology that's in the image of us. We are gods of technology. We are the ancient aliens to future robots. They're gonna be like, oh, you know, they they messed with our robot DNA, our RNA, and
That's funny.
there'll be shows
Yeah.
on new National Geographic, new Nat Geo, where they keep lying to people. See, I don't know.
Right.
Maybe we're on this incredibly terrible down spiral, but for a small group of people on Earth, things are pretty good. And that's a really tough place to be. Like I don't want to be the it's all amazing. It's really tough for a lot of people. I'll kind of
Yes.
close with that. So we'll
Yes.
send them all interesting cosmic love energy vibes and positivity and also validate them and also encourage people here who came through on the chat to go out and make a video or make a piece of art or find somebody who needs art or a piece of video or a song and make it for them because
I like that.
this will replace all the shitty I hate saying that.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
music is
yeah.
weaponized to be
Yes.
baseline
Yes.
moronic and produced
Yes.
without any dynamic range. And then auto tune
Mm-hmm.
is actually not a pleasant sound. And somehow, because of imposed media, auto tune is now acceptable when it shouldn't be.
Wow.
It's like trash art. Like they've basically
Yes.
made trash into the Mona Lisa, but Mona Lisa is still the Mona Lisa, and good singing is still good singing. And you know, just because it's imposed by some businesses doesn't mean that it's good. So anyway, go out there and make content. Go out there and check out Tess's work. Um, I gotta go because I'm really starving and I'm kind of to fade. And I think the when a song is over, it tells you. So today's song has come to a
It's
close.
over. It was beautiful.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Tess.
Thank you, Chris. Have a good lunch and take care, everyone, and spread your good energies, like Chris said. Good vibes.
Thanks everybody in the chat. Y'all have a great day, and I'll see you later for the moon stream. And please, yeah, definitely check out Tess's work. I'm gonna link it one more time. But it's really important to, you know, if you're in the mindset of like, I'm pretty sure the universe is electric, I'm just waiting for Thunderbolts Project to tell me what to do, they might
Mm-mm.
not, you know? So so just make a diagram, make an intro, you know, find some graphics for people. Like Ken Wheeler
Yeah.
needs graphics done. Like if you believe in Ken Wheeler's magnetic work or mutual mass acceleration,
Mm.
go download Blender 3D, download a program and like make a graphic for him or make a dozen. Write a song for like Electric Universe Eyes, or you know he likes it. He'll write a song, but I don't know. Whoever needs an intro clip, make them an intro clip because they might be doing different scientific work. Like that's how you can actually play part in moving this forward as opposed to just being a consumer, you know, which is not bad, but this is what we're trying to change, right? Like you can be
Yes.
both a consumer and a creator. And marketing doesn't want to tell you that. They just want you to be consumers, but everybody can be both.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Catch you soon. And I'll play out with a song. This is the least amount of music that's been on TakeBackSpace, thanks to Tess. But
Thank
well,
you.
that's awesome. Like a first real long show. Um, let's see. What song shall we go with? This one. All right, Tess. Have a great day. I'll catch you soon.
You
Thank
too.
you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye.